Chapter 233. Shifengju got down from the bamboo sedan and went to help Sangwon. He smiled and said, "I didn't scare you, did I?" Sangwon shook her head and said with a smile, "I was a little nervous at first, but after I calmed down, I felt that it was quite interesting." Shifengju chuckled and led her up the mountain. He said, "There are also sedan chairs on the mountain. When we go down the mountain, we can just sit down. We can go up slowly now, there's no need to rush. The scenery on this mountain is quite good. Not far ahead, there's an extremely high waterfall. It just so happens that today isn't the 1st or 15th day of the new year, and it's also not a holiday. Not many people come here, so it's really convenient for us." Sangwon naturally agreed with a smile and walked slowly with him. Shifengju didn't want Chang Huan and the others to follow, so he ordered them to go up the mountain first to reserve a vegetarian feast. Luya raised the box in her hand and said, "Eldest young master, eldest young mistress, let this servant follow. Maybe eldest young master and eldest young mistress are thirsty and want to drink tea." When it came to being considerate and attentive, even 10 Luya couldn't compare to 1 Chang Huan. Shifengju sometimes hated Luya so much that he couldn't say anything. He didn't know if Luya was really muddle-headed or just pretending to be muddle-headed. He didn't know what to say, but Chang Huan had already whispered to Luya, but just enough for Shifengju and Sangwon to hear. "Stupid. Eldest young master clearly doesn't want anyone to disturb you, but you still want to follow. This is easy to handle. Why do you have to follow behind? Can't you walk far ahead and wait? Eldest young master and eldest young mistress will call you if they want to drink tea." When Luya heard this, she raised her head and looked at Shifengju with her dark eyes, as if asking him, "Is that so?" Shifengju was the master, after all, so it wasn't appropriate for him to say something too explicit in front of the servants. Seeing Luya looking at him so openly, he didn't know how to respond. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. What a blockhead. Chang Huan, that dog, was more attentive than her. Unfortunately, she wasn't a girl. Sangwon held back her laughter and said to Luya, "What are you waiting for? Let's go. Wait at the second down mountain gate." "Yes, ma'am." After Luya heard this, she walked forward with Chang Huan and the others. She thought to herself that young mistress was still the best. She spoke clearly and clearly. There was no one around, so Shifengju held Sangwon's hand and walked slowly, pointing out the scenery along the way. The two of them talked and laughed intimately. Seeing the lavender irises on the side of the road, which were blooming brightly, Sangwon praised them. Shifengju picked one and carefully put it in her hair. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. When they arrived at the waterfall, the two of them leaned on the railing and admired it for a while. They watched the white waterfall whizzing down from the high cliff, hitting the deep green pool below their feet, and then flowing out along the stream. The fragmented fog and cool air hit them in the face. The surrounding grass, leaves, and trees were baptized and spotless. It was incomparably bright and lush. Between the surrounding mountains and the lush green hills, it was even more serene and refined. At this point, all their worries were forgotten, as if they were out of this world. The master here is very lucky to have chosen such a good place to build a temple. Who knows how many people are envious? Sangwon couldn't help but praise with a smile. Shifengju smiled and said, "Wanyang, do you like waterfalls? We also have some in the mountains of Qingzhou. When we go back, I'll ask someone to find a good place. We can also build a village on the mountain, plant flowers and trees everywhere, and raise 2 pairs of red-crowned cranes and sika deer. When we are free, we can go there and stay for a few days. What do you think?" Sangwon was speechless for a moment and looked at him in a daze. "Is that okay, Wanyang?" Shifengju smiled and raised his hand to tidy up her hair that was messed up by the mountain wind. He approached her and said, "And okay, of course it's okay." Sangwon tried her best not to look embarrassed. She forcibly suppressed the words that were about to pop out of her mouth. "If your mother finds out, will she blame me?" Shifengju laughed happily and hugged her to lean against his body. He lowered his head and said with a smile, "You wait and see. I will definitely find you a bigger and more beautiful waterfall than this one." Sangwon smiled. She felt that she was really going to be unable to resist him. It was almost noon when the two arrived at the main temple on the top of the mountain. From afar, they saw a master with a snow-white beard and wearing a cassock, waiting with Buddha beads in his hand. Behind him stood several young monks in blue and gray robes. Sangwon was startled, and was wondering if there were any distinguished guests in the temple today. Shifengju had already taken her forward quickly. When the master saw them, his eyes lit up. He walked over calmly and saluted with one hand. He laughed and said, "Benefactor Shi, long time no see. How are you? I heard from Changhuan that you encountered a small disaster a while ago. Fortunately, you were blessed by Buddha, and the disaster was turned into good fortune. This old monk is also happy for you. Then this servant is talkative. It's just a small matter. I'm fine now. Thank you for your greetings, master." Shifengju respectfully returned the salute, and carefully took off Sangwon's hat, and handed it to Luya. He smiled and said, "Master, this is my wife Wan Yang. Wan Yang, this is the abbot of the Lingxin Temple, Master Ling Jing." "Greetings, master." Sangwon curtsied. Master Ling Jing smiled and did not dare to return the greeting. He said with a smile, "When did Benefactor Shi get married? Congratulations. Young madam is a gentle and virtuous person at first glance. She is a match made in heaven with you." "Hee, thank you for your auspicious words, master. My wife married in April last year. It has been exactly a year." When Shifengju heard Master Ling Jing praising Sangwon, he was happier than hearing anything else. There was a smile between his brows. He led Sangwon and Master Ling Jing into the temple. The backyard of the temple had already been cleaned up. The two of them washed their hands and faces, then came out of the treasure hall to offer incense and kneel down. After that, they entered Master Ling Jing's meditation room and sat down to drink tea. Sangwon saw that Shifengju and Master Ling Jing seemed to be very familiar with each other. The two of them seemed to have a lot to say. She was very bored here, and did not want to disturb them. She found a time to get up and said with a smile that she wanted to visit the temple. She asked the two of them to help themselves. Shifengju knew what she meant, so he did not stop her. He only smiled and told her to be careful, and not to leave the temple. Master Ling Jing sent his close disciple, Huizhen, to guide Sangwon around. Sangwon thanked him and left. When Changhuan and the others saw that they did not need to serve them, they had already gone to play in the temple. Only Luya followed Sangwon, and followed Huizhen to visit the temple. The topography of this place was excellent. Several hundred years ago, a temple was built here. During these several hundred years, it rose and fell several times. It was built and destroyed and rebuilt again, leaving behind countless traces and stories of legends for the later generations. This Huizhen was eloquent, and had done a lot of research on Buddhism. In addition, he had the intention to curry favor with her, so he used all his skills to explain to Sangwon. Not only Sangwon, but even Luya, who was at the side, was listening intently. "Madam, don't look at how bright the temple is now. You wouldn't have thought that just 4 years ago. This place was still a desolate place where wild foxes roamed. My master was merciful and rebuilt this temple, and invited the true Buddha. Now, not to mention the 4 villages and 8 villages nearby. Even in Handan City, I don't know how many nobles and commoners have come here to make wishes, fulfill wishes, and worship Buddha devoutly to accumulate blessings." Sangwon and Luya could not help but look at the solemn and majestic buildings around them. They smiled in surprise and said, "If little master didn't say it, it would have been hard to imagine that this Lingxin temple had only been built for a few years." In order to rebuild this temple, Master Ling Jing must have been begging for alms for many years and suffered a lot. Apart from the royal temples or the temples built by some local government officials, most of the temples in the world were built and repaired by various monks by soliciting alms and donations. How much money and wood could be donated depended entirely on one's Buddhist cultivation base, reputation, and fate. There were so many palaces and houses in the Lingxin temple, so the cost was definitely not low. No matter how famous Master Ling Jing was, he would have to put in a lot of effort. Huizhen looked at Sangwon in surprise and said, "Madam, don't you know? Our Lingxin temple was rebuilt with young Master Shi's money. Everyone in our temple is extremely grateful to young Master Shi." "Is there such a thing? I really didn't know. Sangwon was shocked. Shi Fengju did not tell her that he was the one who paid for the reconstruction of the Lingxin temple. Luya clapped her hands and said with a smile, "No wonder Master Lingjing and my young master are so familiar. It turns out that they have known each other for a long time. Master Lingjing really has good taste. It's right to ask my young master for alms. Not to mention one Lingxin temple, even 10 Lingxin temples would not be a problem." Luya. Sangwon saw that Luya did not cover her mouth and turned her head to look at her, indicating for her to shut up. Huijin did not notice anything and said with a smile, "Miss, you are wrong. My master did not ask young Master Shi for alms." "That's strange. Could it be that our young master took the initiative to come to you? You are so far away from Qingzhou, it's impossible. If you are in Qingzhou, then it's more like it," Luya said again. "That's not it." Huijin smiled with a good temper and said, "Speaking of which, we deserve to be unlucky. Ever since Master chose this place to make an oath to rebuild, we have been begging for alms outside. After 5 years, we barely managed to gather enough money. That day, when we were almost done calculating, we rushed back to try to build it as soon as possible. Who knew that the marshal uncle in charge of the accounts would accidentally lose the bag with the banknotes? When we went back to look for it, there was no trace of it. Everyone was so anxious that they wanted to hang themselves. Marshal uncle even cried out loud and wanted to jump into the river to commit suicide. Coincidentally, we met young Master Shi's convoy. Young Master asked about the situation and agreed that he would pay for the reconstruction. He asked us to return to the mountain first. Then he sent someone to deliver the banknotes. We originally thought that he was joking, but since things had come to this, we could only listen to him and return to the mountain first. Unexpectedly, before we returned to the mountain, we met the people sent by young Master Shi at the foot of the mountain. They were riding horses, so naturally, they were faster than us. At that time, they gave us 80,000 in banknotes, which almost scared us. Huijin said as if he remembered the scene at that time. He smiled and sighed. "Madam, I'm not afraid of being laughed at, but we were really dumbfounded at that time. Until the master who gave the banknotes left, we still did not come back to our senses. We could not believe that it was true." Luya smiled. "Then after that, this Lingxin temple was built?" "Yes," Huijin nodded and smiled. With enough money in hand, all kinds of materials were quickly bought. Many villagers nearby came to help. It took more than a year to build the main hall, and the rest were slowly built. Master originally wanted to return it to young Master Shi, but young Master Shi didn't accept it. Master then built a school at the foot of the mountain and hired a teacher to teach the children in the nearby villages to read and write for free. The remaining money was used to purchase thousands of mu of fertile land. Every year, the harvest from the land was used to pay for the expenses of the temple and the school. Every winter, we would set up a porridge stall to distribute porridge to the poor, give cotton clothes and blankets to the poor, repair bridges and roads, and do a lot of good deeds. Today, our temple's reputation can be said to be known by everyone in Handan. Chapter 234. Reverend truly has the heart of a bodhisattva, truly admirable. Sangwon couldn't help but put her palms together in admiration. Huijin hurriedly put her palms together in greeting and said, "A monk should be merciful. Master often teaches us this. It's rare for young Master Shi to be so kind and charitable. You are a true philanthropist. Our entire temple is grateful." While they were talking, they suddenly heard Shi Fengju calling out with a smile, "Wan Nyang." He walked over from behind. Huijin hurriedly retreated to the side and greeted, "Benefactor Shi." Shi Fengju nodded and smiled. "Thank you for your trouble, young master. Young master, please go." Huijin bowed and excused herself. Luya was also smart for once. Without waiting for Shi Fengju to speak, she took the initiative and said, "This servant will also take her leave." Saying so, she hurriedly left. Sangwon laughed and joked to Shi Fengju, "This girl is too honest. She is far worse than your Changhuan. Don't glare at her in the future. If you glare at her a few more times, she will become even more stupid." Shi Fengju laughed. "When did I glare at her? You are protecting her." Sometimes I am a little confused. Is she really stupid or is she pretending to be stupid? You said she is stupid? Humph, if she is stupid, why would she help you with the accounts? I see that her abacus is quite smooth and she can read quite a few words. She just doesn't understand. Sangwon laughed. She just doesn't understand. Don't scare her anymore. Shi Fengju helplessly shook his head and pulled her with a smile. Come, I will bring you to a good place. Saying so, he pulled her along. Shi Fengju pulled Sangwon to a courtyard. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a very tall tree with lush leaves. Countless red ribbons hung down from the tree. Not far from the tree, there was a copper incense burner that was half the height of a person. Inside the copper incense burner, densely packed with incense stalks, was placed. What is this? Sangwon asked curiously. Countless red ribbons swayed in the wind amidst the lush foliage of the trees. Red and green intertwined, giving off a unique flavor. Shi Fengju said with a smile. This old camphor tree is said to be more than 100 years old. If you make a wish in front of it and write it on a red ribbon, as long as you throw it on the tree and it doesn't fall down, your wish will come true. The higher you throw it, the more effective it will be. Many people will give it a try. Wanyang, let's give it a try. Sangwon's gaze swept across the room. Sure enough, there was a long table on the side. On the table there was a brush, ink and inkstone. At one end of the table, there was a half-old vermilion wooden box with a crack on the top. Next to the wooden box, there was a red ribbon that hung neatly in front of the table. It was cut to 2 inches wide and 2 feet long. At one end, there was a small bag. There should be something inside, otherwise, how could it be thrown up so easily? Sangwon smiled and said, Didn't you make a wish before you came here? Shi Fengju suddenly felt a little guilty. After the completion of the Lingxin temple, he would come here every time he passed by Handan. Firstly, he was greedy to see the scenery of the mountain. Secondly, Master Ling Jing's words were not ordinary, and were worth making friends with. Listening to his enlightenment often made him feel enlightened, as if all the troubles in the mortal world were gone. Thirdly, the vegetarian food in the temple was personally made by Master Ling Jing's junior brother, Master Ling Qing. It was incomparably delicious and was now famous in the entire Handan city. This great Master Ling Qing had a rule, which was that he would only cook 3 times a month, once every 10 days. He was the only exception. Every time he came, Great Master Ling Qing would cook happily. Shi Fengju felt guilty because after he heard the legend, the first thing he thought of was his forced engagement. His biggest wish was, of course, to cancel the engagement. At that time, there was really no other way. He had to make a Hail Mary effort. That day, when he came here, he almost reached out his hand. Suddenly, he felt that his wish was a little unrealistic. After hesitating, he could no longer reach out his hand. At this moment, when he heard Sangwon ask, although she did not know, he felt quite embarrassed facing his own heart. No, I came here to chat with Master Ling Jing. After eating the vegetarian food, I left. How could I have time to do this? Shi Fengju coughed and quickly said. Sangwon did not doubt him. She smiled and said, Since it's so effective, let's give it a try. I wonder what young master's wish is? Shi Fengju smiled and asked, Wanyang, what about you? Sangwon was stunned. She could not help but ask herself, what wish is it? There seemed to be a lot, but there seemed to be none. She was stunned all of a sudden. Shi Fengju smiled and took her to the table. He took out a few bright copper coins and threw them into the red lacquer wooden box. He scooped a spoonful of water from the water basin and dripped a few drops on the ink slab. He ground the ink, took the ribbon and wrote on it, Shi Fengju and Sangwon will grow old together and be united forever. Every stroke of his was written very carefully. His elegant and light handwriting was clearly displayed on the bright red ribbon and reflected clearly in Sangwon's eyes. The black words on the red background could not be clearer. Through the eyes, they almost reached the bottom of Sangwon's heart. Sangwon was shocked. Suddenly, she felt a surge of moisture in her eyes. It slowly spread in her eyes, and the words in front of her began to become blurry. At this moment, her heart was heavy, and her mind was blank. He said that he wanted to grow old together with her, and be united forever. At this moment, she knew that this man really had her in his heart. All right. Shifengju finally let out a sigh of relief. He put down the brush and looked at the words he had written. He held her hand and asked with a smile, "Wan Yang, do you think my handwriting is good?" He had only asked her if her handwriting was good. In his eyes, her heart was naturally the same as his. All right. Sangwon stiffly nodded her head. She knew that when she said yes, she should show a bashful smile, but the stiff muscles on her cheeks refused to listen to her. Instead, her voice was filled with a thick nasal tone. Shifengju also felt it. He faced her and gently held her hand. With a smile, he said, "Wan Yang, I only want to grow old with you and be united forever. Is your heart the same as mine?" Sangwon nodded. In a low and hoarse voice, she said softly, "You are my husband." Shifengju smiled. His smile was like the east wind blowing over the hillside in early spring. Everywhere it passed, flowers bloomed. "Wan Yang, come." Shifengju smiled and stuffed the ribbon into Sangwon's hand. He pulled her to stand beside the tree. Sangwon was startled. She felt a little nervous for no reason. It seemed that success or failure could really determine their future. "Wan Yang, come, I believe you can do it." Shifengju smiled excitedly. He looked up and squinted at the red ribbon floating all over the tree. "Then I'll try." Sangwon took 2 steps back. She looked up and used all her strength to throw it up. Both of their gazes shifted towards the red ribbon that was being tossed upwards. Even Shifengju could not help but feel a little nervous as he tightened his grip on her hand. "Aya!" Sangwon exclaimed in disappointment. She saw that the red ribbon did not even touch the edge of the tree. Her strength was too weak, and the distance she retreated was too far. Before the red ribbon touched the tree, it began to fall. Although it fell very slowly, it was still falling. It was destined that it would not even touch the edge of a leaf. Sangwon was secretly disappointed. At the same time, she glanced at Shifengju guiltily. She really did not do it on purpose. Perhaps her thoughts were not pure, and even God could not stand it. "Wan Yang, look." Suddenly, a gust of wind blew. The red ribbon was blown forward, and just happened to hang on a tree branch. It swayed steadily with the wind. Shifengju was so happy that he hurriedly called out to Sangwon. Sangwon looked up, and was very happy. She pulled Shifengju's arm and said happily, it's hanging on the tree. Fengju. I knew you would be able to do it. This is God's will, Wan Yang." Shifengju was so happy that he hugged her and spun her around twice. Sangwon giggled and wrapped her arms around his neck. At this moment, her heart was truly filled with unparalleled joy. Deep in her heart, there was a faint hope. If she could be like this for the rest of her life, then she would not ask for anything else. Wan Yang. It was rare for Shifengju to see her smile so brightly. Her smile, which came from the bottom of her heart, was even more dazzling than the dazzling sun. He was used to seeing her reserved and gentle smile, and this smile made him like it even more. He held her face and lowered his head to kiss her. "Young master, young mistress." Luya's voice came first, and she stopped abruptly after shouting. She hurriedly turned around and her heart skipped a beat. Luya pulled a long face and bit her lip. She seemed to be untactful again. Young master already had a bad opinion of her, and she really did not want to make him hate her again. But she really could not be blamed for this. Okay. How could she have known that young master was so unrestrained? Even in a Buddhist place, he did not know any taboos. Wasn't he tired of it already? Although Luya turned around, it was just a cover-up. Sangwon's face was flushed red, and she pushed Shifengju away. Shifengju's charming and gentle mood was broken. He frowned and cursed Luya countless times in his heart. Stinky lass, wretched lass. "Luya, what's the matter?" Sangwon asked. "This servant is here too." "You lass, how can you reply to your master like this? Why aren't you turning around for me?" Shifengju saw that she was still talking to herself with her back facing them. He could not help but feel angry and amused at the same time. "Yes, young master." Luya hurriedly turned around and said with a smile, "The vegetarian banquet has been prepared. This servant is here to invite young master and young mistress over to eat." "I almost forgot. Wan Yang, you're hungry too, right? Let's go over now." Shifengju smiled. and the three of them went back to the Hall of Great Strength. The two masters, Ling Jing and Ling Qing, were waiting at the entrance of the main hall. They met and said a few words to each other. Shi Fengju thanked them again, and the two masters took their leave. They ordered the monks to lead the two of them to the dining hall. Chapter 235. A dish of emerald shrimp was made with tender beans and dried glutinous rice flour, egg, and seasonings as the main ingredients. The tender beans were peeled and cooked with oil. The color was dark green like emerald. After heating the pot with oil, ginger slices and yellow rice wine were added to the pot. The beans, sugar, salt, and other seasonings were stir-fried and soup was added. After the flavor was mixed, the vegetarian shrimp was added, stir-fried until thickened with starch, and poured in sesame oil. Red and green, the color was gorgeous, the beans were fragrant, and the shrimps were soft and tender. Although they were not real shrimps, they had a different flavor when eaten. A dish of luojiang tofu chicken was made with soybeans as the main ingredient. The soybeans were ground into soy milk, and the dregs were filtered out. After boiling, it was changed to a small fire. When the oily skin was formed, the oily skin was picked up with thick bamboo chopsticks and placed aside to dry until it was done. The sesame powder, soy sauce, vegetable oil, and pepper powder were evenly spread on the oily skin. The oily skin was wrapped into rectangular pieces and steamed in a steamer basket. The various seasonings were soaked in the oily skin. After it was steamed and taken out to cool, it was cut into small pieces. Small pieces of uniform diamond-shaped pieces could be placed on a plate to form a dish. It was soft and dry, salty and fragrant, and was very chewy. A dish of ivory snow bamboo shoots was made with tender bamboo shoots and pickled vegetables as the main ingredients. The tender bamboo shoots were trimmed into 4 ivory shapes and blanched in boiling water. Wash the pickled vegetables and cut them into sections for later use. In the pot, peanut oil was added. First, scallions and ginger slices were added and stir-fried until fragrant. Then the pickled vegetables were stir-fried. After that, the vegetable soup and various seasonings were added. Finally, the tender bamboo shoots were also placed in the pot. After boiling, it was cooked over a small fire. Starch was added and poured in. When the plate was arranged, the 4 ivory bamboo shoots were placed at the 4 corners. The tips of the bamboo shoots faced outwards, and the pickled vegetables were placed in the center. The ivory was as white as jade, and the pickled vegetables were green and flawless. It was simple and elegant, fresh and fragrant. In addition, there were also slices of bell meat, lotus leaf meat, shredded chowder, 3 delicacies fish maw, osmanthus scallops, chicken tofu pudding, crystal duck cubes, pigeon eggs, fresh mushroom chicken slices, lotus flower out of water, drunken winter bamboo shoots, chrysanthemum flour with spring, stir-fried golden needles, smoked pine nuts tofu coat, and so on, all with different names, but they were all made with vegetarian ingredients. Shi Fengju obviously knew a lot about these dishes, so he was able to explain each dish to Sangwon. Although Sangwon had been to the temple several times before, the vegetarian dishes she had eaten were only stir-fried cabbage, green vegetables, and tofu. Seeing the dishes, she was full of praise. The two of them enjoyed the vegetarian feast very much. Even Luya and the rest were able to enjoy a rare delicacy. After finishing the vegetarian feast, the sun was already setting in the west. The two of them bid farewell and went down the mountain. Nothing happened the night at the inn. The next morning after breakfast, they took a carriage to the pier and boarded a boat to Qingzhou. Even if it's a little slower, it won't take too much time. We don't have to rush. Let's stay on the shore every night when we reach the pier. Just leave 2 or 3 people to watch the boat. Shi Fengju said. That was exactly what Sangwon wanted. Although it was unlikely that she would be so unlucky as to encounter such a rare occurrence twice in such a short period of time, it was never wrong to be more careful. Thus she agreed with a smile. At night, the two of them took Luya and the others ashore to stay on the shore. Shi Fengju had nothing to do during the day. He was very energetic and had almost nothing to do. At night, he naturally hugged and made love to kill his energy. Sangwon saw that he didn't have the slightest self-control and was reluctant. He was a patient who had just recovered from his injury. If he went back like this and his body became weak, She would die of shame. Shi Fengju said half seriously and half jokingly. Wan Yang, I've thought about it. We should hurry up and have a child. With a child, mother will have something to do. She won't have to think too much and cause trouble all day. He then smiled and asked her how Mama Li had helped her recuperate. In fact, Shi Fengju thought about his accident after the event. The more he thought about it, the more upset he felt. He thought that if something else happened in the future, and he didn't even leave behind a child, how could he face his ancestors, his mother, and his wife? With this sense of worry and the fact that his wife was the person he loved, he naturally pestered her even more. Sangwon felt that what he said made sense and didn't say anything else. She allowed him to reach out and undress her. Then he hugged her and rolled onto the bed. Half a month later, the boat finally docked at the Qingzhou pier. 2 days ago, someone had been sent to deliver the news by land. The Jin housekeeper had already brought people to the pier to wait. When Shi Fengju and Sangwon got off the boat, the Jin housekeeper hurriedly led everyone to greet them. Eldest young master, eldest young mistress, you're finally back. Eldest young mistress and the servants have been looking forward to seeing you every day. When the Jin housekeeper saw Shi Fengju, his eyes immediately became moist. He couldn't help but raise his sleeve to wipe the corners of his eyes. It could be said that he had watched Shi Fengju grow up. When he heard that Shi Fengju had encountered a disaster, how could he not be worried? Now that he saw him, he suddenly felt as if a lifetime had passed. I told you all to be worried. Aren't I perfectly fine? Let's go home. Shi Fengju also felt a little emotional and sighed with a smile. Yes. Eldest young master, eldest young mistress, please get on the carriage. Leave your luggage to me. I'm afraid that eldest young mistress will be anxious from waiting. The Jin housekeeper hurriedly smiled and led Shi Fengju and Sangwon into the carriage. The two got on the carriage and drove towards the Shi family. Neither of them spoke. The Jin housekeeper's disposition made their hearts feel heavy. If the Jin housekeeper was already like this, one could imagine how worried Wang was. Shi Fengju and Sangwon didn't expect that Wang, second Lord Shi and his wife, third Old Master Shi and his wife, Gu Fangzi, and Mama Li would be waiting at the entrance of the Shi family. When they saw them from afar, they hurriedly ordered the carriage to stop. My son, you're finally back. Shi Fengju quickly stepped forward and lifted his robe. Just as he was about to kneel down to pay his respects to his mother, Wang Shi grabbed hold of him just as he bent down. She hugged him and cried bitterly. The crowd quickly comforted her. After a while, Wang recovered and looked Shi Fengju up and down. Shi Fengju hurriedly put on a relaxed smile and allowed her to look at him. Mother, look, I'm fine. What's fine? Your complexion doesn't look good and you've lost weight. Wang sniffed and said. Shi Fengju smiled and said, I must be tired from the journey. I'll rest at home for a few days. Mother, you can ask the kitchen to make more delicious food for me to make up for it. Everyone laughed in their hearts when they heard the young master talking to eldest young mistress like this. Wang, however, nodded seriously and said, Of course. You have to rest at home for a few days and don't worry about anything. I'll ask the kitchen to make ginseng black chicken soup for you every day. Add some longans, lotus seeds, and tremella and it'll be the most nourishing. Also, drink a bowl of blood bird's nest in the morning, and in the evening to replenish your qi and blood. Shi Fengju's scalp went numb when he heard this. He couldn't help but smile and agree perfunctorily. Second Lord Shi and the others hurriedly persuaded them to enter the mansion. Thus, a group of people clustered around Wang and walked towards the main courtyard. Once they were seated, Second Lord Shi and his wife knew that their sister-in-law must have a lot to say to Shi Fengju. They only said a few words of greeting, and then left together, leaving the mother and son alone to talk in peace. Eldest cousin, you're finally back. Aunt has been so worried about you these days that she refused to listen to anyone's advice. She's been abstaining from meat and praying to Buddha every day. Gu Fangzi sighed softly. Yes. Come, my son. Quickly wash your hands and change your clothes. Burn a stick of incense for the Bodhisattva, and then go to the ancestral hall to burn incense for the ancestors. It's all thanks to the blessings of the Bodhisattva and the ancestors that my son was able to survive. Wang hurriedly said. Shifengju nodded and said, Mother, Wan Yang and I will go back to Ning Garden to change first. Wang then remembered her daughter-in-law who had accompanied her son back. She nodded at Sangwon and said with a smile, Wan Yang, thank you for taking care of Fengju. You're very good, Mother understands. Quickly change your clothes and we'll pay our respects to the Bodhisattva and the ancestors later. Sangwon said something along the lines of doing her duty, and agreed before leaving with Shifengju. Back in Ning Garden, the master and servant had other things to talk about when they met. Mama Li inevitably had many questions, so she casually answered them. Mama Li also knew that Wang was waiting for them, so she asked someone to help her change her clothes. After hearing that everything was fine, she put down the questions she wanted to ask. After paying their respects to the Bodhisattva and the ancestors, Wang sent Sangwon back first. She pulled Shifengju to look at him from left to right, up and down. She rolled up his sleeves to check his arm and the wound on his leg. Shifengju was embarrassed and quickly avoided her gaze with a smile. Mother, the doctor said that I'm really fine. Look, isn't the way I walk the same as before? There's nothing different, right? You don't have to look. In order to prove that he wasn't lying, Shifengju immediately walked back and forth in front of Wang twice. Wang looked very carefully, and felt that there really wasn't anything different. Only then was she relieved, but she asked again, Then is there a scar on your leg? Was it serious at the time? Let me take a look, otherwise I'll feel uneasy. Shifengju didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He thought to himself, I'm standing in front of you, so why would you feel uneasy? Seeing her insistence, Shifengju couldn't dissuade her. He could only sigh and sit on the couch, resigned to his fate. He took off his shoes, lifted his robe, and rolled up his pants to show his injury to his mother. Previously, he had been using medicine for more than a month, so a large patch of skin on his leg was yellowish-brown from the medicine that hadn't faded away. It set off a hideous scar, which looked terrible to look at. Wang gently stroked it with trembling hands, and tears suddenly gushed out again. This was so painful. My son, how could you be so careless? If something were to happen to you, how am I going to live on? Wang Shi was distressed and annoyed at the same time. She scolded Shifengju. Shifengju hurriedly comforted her, saying that although the wound looked ugly, the doctor was very skilled, and the medicine he used was very effective. Moreover, it really didn't hurt. He also said that he was still applying the ointment, and that the scar would disappear after a while. Wang's heartache lessened slightly, and she became angry again. She scolded Chang Huan, Steward Zhang, and the others and was about to call them in to teach them a lesson. Shifengju persuaded her with great difficulty. Eldest cousin, how did your leg get hurt like this? Gu Fangzi suddenly screamed and rushed in from outside. She bent down and reached out to touch Shifengju's leg. Younger cousin, Shifengju shouted and hurriedly dodged. He quickly pulled down his pants and pulled down his robe. He frowned, obviously very unhappy. Gu Fangzi was very embarrassed. Her outstretched hand froze in place, and after a while she slowly withdrew it. She lowered her head and said softly, I'm sorry, eldest cousin, I'm sorry. I just lost my composure. Seeing you injured like this, half embarrassed, half angry and half sad, Gu Fangzi sobbed, covered her face, turned around and ran out. Chapter 236. Feng Wang hurriedly called out, but Gu Fangzi had already rushed out of the door. Yua, look at how you frightened her. Wang glared at her son and said, These days, I'm thankful to have Feng accompany me and advise me. But you, instead of thanking her, you're giving her a hard time the moment you come back. How can she not feel embarrassed? Shifengju said, Mother, I'm naturally grateful to her for accompanying you and advising you. But that's another matter. She's just a girl. I can't accept it. When Wang Shi heard this, she swept her eyes around and instructed Nanny Jiang and the others to leave. Wang Shi then said, Originally we could talk about this matter in a few days, but since we've brought it up today, there's no harm in talking about it. Fengju Feng is really a good girl. She's good to this family, good to Mother, and even better to you. You don't know how sad she was when something happened to you these days. In front of me, she had to force a smile and advise me, But behind my back, she secretly cried. When I became a vegetarian, she also became a vegetarian. Every morning and evening, she would pray to Bodhisattva to bless your safe return. Fengjiu, mother has decided to consummate your marriage in a few days. She only has you in her heart and doesn't care about her status. What else are you not satisfied with? I think Wan Yang won't have any objections. Shi Fengjiu's heart was immediately filled with displeasure. Instead of answering, he asked with a smile that was not a smile. Mother, since she was crying secretly, how did you know? What are you saying? Wang was startled and scolded him with a smile. You're already an adult, but you still speak so incoherently. Sometimes, mother feels that I don't understand what you're thinking anymore. In the past, you were unwilling to marry Wan Yang into the family, and dragged it out for so many years. Only when you had no other choice did you reluctantly bring her into the family. But now you're protecting her. Mother doesn't have any other intentions. Mother is naturally happy to see the two of you getting along well. But, what did Feng do wrong? You can't leave her behind just because you have Wan Yang. Could it be? Wang said suspiciously. Did Wan Yang really say something to you behind your back? Mother, Shi Fengjiu said with a wry smile. How can Wan Yang be that kind of person? Moreover, is your son so indecisive? Mother, I have my own reasons for not accepting cousin. Mother, don't ask any more. Don't get involved in this matter. No. Wang's face suddenly darkened and she said, Fengjiu, as the saying goes, a friend in need is a friend indeed. You treated Feng so badly, but when your life was in danger, she was still worried about you wholeheartedly. She cared for you and did so much for the family. Even mother was touched by her feelings for you. How could you do this? What did she do to make you so disgusted? But mother thinks that even if she did something, it must be because she has you in her heart, and is afraid of losing you. You can't belittle her because of this. Seeing that her son did not say a word, it was clear that he did not take her words seriously. Feeling angry and helpless, Wang Shi told her son everything that Gu Fengzi had done for the household these past few days. Other things were fine, but there were two things that shocked Shi Fengjiu. Mother, what did you say? Cousin got involved in the business of the Shiji shipping company? Shi Fengjiu was shocked. Although the Shi family had countless fertile lands and innumerable restaurants and shops, the bulk of the business was the shipping business. The Shi family had their own fleet with nearly 200 ships of all sizes. Every year, they would travel between the north and south ends of the canal and the cities along the coast. They also had business dealings with many sea merchants. Every year, the profits earned from this business accounted for half of the Shi family's total profits. Shi Fengjiu had always been strict with the shipping business. Every year he would personally travel between the north and south of the canal to check on the problems and solve them. Because Qingzhou was the headquarters of the Shi family, and was located at the southernmost end of the canal, the headquarters of the Shi family shipping business was located in Qingzhou. On the Qingzhou pier, half of the territory was occupied by the Shi family. Since the two of them got along well, she had followed him to the pier and knew a lot about the shipping business. She even had a good relationship with many of the stewards. Shi Fengjiu's heart was filled with raging waves of anger. How dare she? She actually took advantage of him when he had no time to deal with other matters. What do you mean by get involved? It sounds so bad. Wang frowned and said, You took our family's ship when you went out. Whether it's the ship's problem or the people's problem, it's all related to the people in the shipping business. It's a good thing for Feng to help out. It's hard for her to be so considerate. How can you say that about her? Shi Fengjiu suppressed his anger and said, Did she also say that to you? I think what she said is right. Wang did not deny it. Seeing her son's face getting uglier, she said, Don't blame her for this. If you want to blame someone, blame me. I was the one who called the few stewards of the shipping business over to personally instruct them. If you think that Feng is greedy for power, then you're wrong. She was also hesitant at first because she was afraid that you would misunderstand her when you came back. I patted my chest and promised her, so she didn't have to worry about anything. Every few days, she would tell me about the shipping business. Shi Fengjiu did not know what to say and hurriedly asked, Mother, did she ask you for any advice? You don't know about business matters, but she didn't say anything, right? Look at what you're saying. Wang said. Your mother doesn't even have this bit of self-awareness? Of course I don't know about business matters, so why would I give any advice? Our Shi family's rules are there, and even our ancestors are watching. I only told Fang, to remind them to work hard, to check all the ships regularly to prevent any mistakes, and to train the workers to not panic at critical moments. That's all. That's all? Shi Fengjiu felt powerless and looked up at the sky. Did his mother know that her few words of "that's all" could lead to countless other things? Gu Fangzi could do a lot of things with just these few words. Although the stewards of the ship's operations were not personally managed by Wang, how could they dare to disobey Wang's wishes? Shi Fengjiu had no words to describe the anger in his heart. Gu Fangzi, she was really getting more and more capable. Wang was still rambling on, but Shi Fengjiu could no longer listen to her. He said that he was tired and found an excuse to leave the main courtyard. If this matter made him extremely angry, then there was another matter that he didn't know whether to be happy or worried. In the beginning of the 5th month, Sang Yufei, who had gone to the capital for the imperial examinations, had returned. He came in 3rd in the court examinations, and after returning to his hometown to pay respects to his ancestors, he went to the capital to take up a post in the Hanlin Academy. This was originally a joyous occasion. Needless to say, the Sang family would also gain face for the Shi family. However, who would have thought that the Sang family would be interested in marriage, sending a matchmaker to the Shi family's 3rd Miss Shi Lian as his wife? When Wang heard the matchmaker's words, she was naturally overjoyed. The Sang family did not mind that Shi Lian was a concubine's daughter, and taking in a son-in-law who came in 3rd was also a matter of pride. In her joy, Wang remembered that Shi Lian had been burned in a fire. She personally saw that there were no scars on her legs, and only then did she feel relieved. She then vaguely mentioned the matter of the prefect's son to the Sang family, who knew that the matchmaker seemed to have already known about this matter, and said that there was no harm. Only then did Wang truly feel happy, because Sang Yufei was rushing to the capital. This marriage naturally had to be arranged as soon as possible. As such, the entire household became busy. Shi Lian's husband was the 3rd in the imperial examinations, and he was also an in-law of the Shi family. Wang naturally did not want to be negligent, and ordered that everything be arranged according to the standards of a legitimate daughter. Other than the date of the marriage to be decided after Shi Fengjiu and his wife returned, everything else had already been prepared. And all of this was in fact arranged by Gu Fangzi. Normally, this matter should not have been up to Gu Fangzi to interfere. As a concubine, it was not right for her to be in charge of the marriage of a young miss of the household. However, the one in charge of this matter was Wang. She was just a person who handled matters, so there was nothing to say. In Gu Fangzi's heart, she was naturally jealous and resentful of this marriage. Shi Lian was just a concubine's daughter, so what right did she have to be married to the 3rd in the imperial examinations? And she, who had been childhood sweethearts with her big cousin, had fallen to the point of being a concubine. And the 3rd in the imperial examinations was Sang Wan's older brother. Gu Fangzi's heart was even more unhappy. Although she was unhappy, Gu Fangzi's expression was happier than anyone else's. She was even more intimate with Shi Lian, and she arranged everything meticulously. She knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yet this matter had to happen at this time. It could be seen that the heavens were not unkind to her. She did not believe that after putting in so much effort to arrange the marriage for Sang Wan's older brother, Sang Wan would chase her away the moment she returned. As long as she did not harm her own reputation or the Sang family's reputation, she would accept it. She believed that Sang Wan would not do such a thing. For the sake of face, the Sang family would not allow her to do so. Even if her big cousin wanted to send her away, she would have no choice but to persuade him. As a result, Gu Fangzi's days were very comfortable and peaceful, and she did not worry about the issue of where she would end up. What she thought was exactly what Shi Fengjiu was worried about. He knew that he could not touch her for the time being. At this time, Sang Wan was in Ning Garden. She had heard Mama Li talk about the changes that had happened in the household these past few days, so she also knew about this matter. Sang Wan was shocked and angry, and it took her a while to recover her senses. She was secretly puzzled. Why would her second brother suddenly ask Shirlien to marry him? She was even more shocked and angry that this marriage was personally arranged by Gu Fangzi. First Madam is very concerned about eldest young master. Although she is very happy about this marriage, how could she have the heart to care about it? Although there are second Madam and third Madam in the household, third young miss is first Madam's daughter. With first Madam present, and first Madam not saying anything, it is not good for them to interfere. Thus, young Miss Biao did it. Mama Li said with a sigh. Sangwon did not say anything for a while. Did this mean that she owed Gu Fangzi a favor? While her heart was in a mess with Rizhong, Gu Fangzi had come with a smile to show her concern and congratulate her older brother on passing the high school. Naturally, she also mentioned this marriage. When Shi Fengju returned, Gu Fangzi finally got up to leave with a smile. Chapter 237. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became subtle and gloomy. Sangwon's mind was in a mess, and she couldn't help but laugh at herself for being greedy. Yes, she was indeed greedy. Thinking back to her previous life, didn't Gu Fangzi also live up to her name as concubine Gu? In this life, she still married into the Shi family and married into Shi Fengju. She also became concubine Gu. How could it be possible for her to get rid of her? Shi Fengju saw that she was silent, and his heart felt uncomfortable. He pulled her into the warm room and held her hand. Wan Yang, don't worry. I will definitely do what I promised you. Sangwon's nose turned sour when she heard that, and her eyes became slightly moist. She slowly controlled her emotions and looked at Shi Fengju with a smile. Fengju, let's not talk about this for now. If we talk about this now, what will the whole household think of us? Moreover, even mother won't be able to accept it. Shi Fengju couldn't help but feel irritated and grumbled. If I knew that coming back would be so troublesome, I wouldn't have come back. Sangwon was amused by his words and laughed. What nonsense are you talking about? Can we not come back for the rest of our lives? Even if we don't come back, this matter won't disappear. Year after year, the older Gu Fangzi got, the more impossible it was for her to leave. Sangwon always knew that Gu Fangzi was difficult to deal with. In her previous life, she had enough of it and didn't want to suffer again in this life. That was why she made such a request to Shi Fengju. But now, it seemed that she had underestimated the situation. Gu Fangzi's endless methods were beyond her imagination. Shi Fengju didn't know that he was speaking in a fit of anger. He smiled and pulled her into his arms before lowering his head to kiss her gently. Wan Yang, you just have to take care of your body and give birth to a son for me. You don't have to worry about anything else. I won't let you be wronged. If I don't like someone, don't even think about forcing them to my side. Shi Fengju knew that even if Sangwon hadn't said that, he would never tolerate such a scheming woman who schemed against him. After dinner, Shi Fengju stepped into the long-awaited Peony Park. Gu Fangzi and Lan Xiang were delighted to see him. They hurriedly welcomed him in with a smile. Lan Xiang was really happy. She thought that the eldest young master must have seen everything that the young miss had done for him, and was moved by the young miss's good intentions. Didn't he just come back from outside to visit the young miss? If it was in the past, who would dare to think of such a thing? Gu Fangzi, on the other hand, had a smile on her face. She was vigilant in her heart. There must be something fishy about this. Eldest cousin must have come with ill intentions. Her aunt didn't know about things that were done under false pretenses, but she couldn't hide it from eldest cousin. Without waiting for Shi Fengju to speak, Gu Fangzi took the initiative to dismiss Lan Xiang. She smiled and went forward to curtsy. Congratulations, eldest cousin. Eldest cousin's misfortune has turned into good fortune, and you've returned safely. This is truly worthy of celebration. It's also a blessing for all of us. We're not outsiders. Cousin, you don't have to be so courteous. Shi Fengju smiled faintly. He casually picked up a chair and sat down. He smiled and said, It's rare for me to use my illness as an excuse to come back. Cousin, you've worked hard. In the past, I've underestimated you. I didn't know that you were so capable. In less than 2 months, you've managed to deal with everything inside and outside the Fu. I really can't help but admire you. The smile on Gu Fangzi's face froze. She forced a smile and said, "What does eldest cousin mean? Are you blaming me for being meddlesome? I actually didn't want to, but my aunt. Don't use my mother as an excuse." Shi Fengju's tone was still light. He smiled and said, "My mother is easily swayed and doesn't have many thoughts. She's like a bowl of clear water that can be seen through with just a glance. Cousin, you're smart. You've been by my mother's side since young. Don't tell me that you don't know my mother's temperament." "Eldest cousin, do you think that I've planned all of this?" Gu Fangzi's eyes gradually welled up with a layer of tears, gradually blurring her vision. She blinked her eyes lightly. 2 drops of clear tears flowed out from her eyes and flowed down her fair cheeks. After passing through the hazy mist, everything in front of her seemed blurry and fragmented, just like her heart at that moment. "I swear, I'm sincerely working for eldest cousin and the Shi family. I have no selfish motives. If eldest cousin suspects me, you can go ahead and check the accounts of the shipping. You can also ask the shopkeepers and stewards to see if I, Gu Fangzi, have taken any personal benefits from this. The reason why I'm involved in this matter is because I know that shipping is the most important part of the Shi family's business. There can't be any mistakes. Eldest cousin, you're recuperating far away. If there's no one watching over you and reminding you at all times, I can't guarantee that the people below won't have any ideas. Big cousin, since you've misunderstood me, I'll go and settle everything tomorrow. I won't touch you again. This way, eldest cousin is willing to believe me, right?" Gu Fangzi's words were full of righteousness and conviction. Anyone who heard it would be touched. However, Shi Fengju only glanced at her disinterestedly and said unhurriedly, "I won't check any of your accounts, and there's no need for me to call the shopkeepers and stewards over to ask them. If I check on you for no reason today, others will naturally think that I'll check on them for no reason tomorrow. You know that I won't do such a thing without evidence." Moreover, the shopkeepers and stewards weren't fools. That account book and business transactions weren't something that you could tamper with. You don't have to explain your thoughts to me. Anyway, it's enough that my mother believes you, isn't it? You don't have to go over tomorrow. I believe that the shopkeepers and stewards will report to me what they need to report. Also, there won't be a next time. Do you understand? Gu Fangzi stared at him in disbelief and smiled sadly. "Eldest cousin, do you really hate me so much now? Even hate everything I've done? Eldest cousin, what thoughts can I have? My thoughts are all about you. I only want you and only want to spend the rest of my life with you. In the past, you promised that you wouldn't let me down. Why are you now?" Gu Fangzi's mouth was filled with bitterness. She turned her face away and sobbed silently. "Yes, I've let you down and I regret it. Are you satisfied with what I've said? We have nothing more to say. Why are you so stubborn?" Shi Fengju said coldly. Gu Fangzi didn't expect him to be so direct. She was stunned for a moment before she recovered. She gritted her teeth and said, "Why? Where did I go wrong? I can change. If sister misunderstood something, I can also explain. Eldest cousin Fangzi." Shi Fengju really wanted to cut open her head to see what was inside. "Is there any meaning in being so entangled? You didn't do anything wrong, and it has nothing to do with Wan Yang. I've said it very clearly. I've changed my mind. Don't use my mother in the future. Don't play tricks in front of my mother. You'll only make me despise you more. Don't be in a hurry to explain. I'm not my mother. It's useless to explain to me. And Wan Yang, you better stay away from her. If you dare to hurt her, I won't let you off. You're on your own. As long as I don't open my mouth, whatever my mother says will be useless." Shi Fengju glanced at her one last time. He didn't feel the slightest bit of pity or sympathy for her pitiful face full of tears. He shook his head slightly and stepped out of the peony park. Shi Fengju looked up at the sky and let out a long breath. He looked at the starry sky, but his heart still felt depressed and uncomfortable. On one side, there was Gu Fangzi's endless entanglement. On the other side, there was his mother who didn't know the truth and blindly interfered. He really wanted to take Sangwon away from home and live a few days in peace. Shi Fengju unconsciously returned to the study. He sat alone behind the large desk for a long time. It wasn't until the candlelight in front of him swayed a few times that he came back to his senses. He glanced at the Western clock on the corner of the desk and said, "Oh no." He hurriedly got up and returned to Ning Garden. When Shi Fengju returned, Sangwon had already gone to bed. Xingji and a young servant girl, who were on night duty, briskly fetched hot water from the small kitchen to help him wash his face and feet. They then went into the room to rest. The curtains had already been softly lowered. Separated by 2 layers of beads, only the hazy brocade quilt could be seen. Shi Fengju gently lifted the curtains. Sangwon slightly opened her eyes. "Did I wake you up?" Shi Fengju smiled. He no longer tried to restrain himself, and calmly got onto the bed. Sangwon moved in slightly and shook her head slightly. She said incoherently, "I thought you weren't coming back." Shi Fengju heard her coquettish and resentful voice and hurriedly smiled. I went to the study after that. I wanted to come back after sitting for a while, but I didn't expect that I would forget the time." Both of them were well aware of where he went first. Since Shi Fengju didn't want to say, Sangwon naturally wouldn't ask either. Sangwon opened her eyes and stared at Shi Fengju's faintly frowning brows. She suddenly felt helpless. She was too greedy and made things difficult for him. "Fengju," Sangwon suddenly sat up and said, "Seeing you in such a difficult position, forget it. Just take it as if I didn't say anything to you before. Man couldn't win against the heavens. Some things were destined to happen, and some people were destined to be entangled for life. It wasn't something that could be changed by her efforts. For example, when she opened her eyes after being reborn, it was neither too early nor too late, but it happened to be in the Shi family's bridal sedan chair. Under the faint and gentle halo, she raised her eyes slightly and said those words to him. A light blue nightgown wrapped around her body, and her glossy black hair fell from her left shoulder to her chest, making her look even more slender and frail. She was just like her name, so gentle that it made one want to hold her in the palm of his hand and cherish her. "Wan Yang," Shi Fengju sighed softly. He reached out and pulled her gently to lean on his body. He said softly, "This has nothing to do with you. Even if you didn't say those words, I wouldn't have tolerated her." Sangwon remained silent. After a moment she said softly, "Since you've said so, I won't say anything else. Fengju, don't be too hasty in this matter. I'm worried about what might happen." "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Shi Fengju held her hand tightly. Shi Fengju was about to pull her to sleep when Sangwon suddenly smiled and said, "Oh right, did Xingji give you some bird's nest just now?" Shi Fengju frowned. "Why would I eat that at night? Quickly go to sleep, it's getting late." "No." Sangwon broke free from his hand and said with a smile, "Nanny Jiang personally sent it over. She also passed on a message from Mother, saying that you must eat it before sleeping. How would I know that you would come back so late? Otherwise, I would have sent someone to send it to the study room. It should be warming up in the small kitchen now. Quickly get up and eat it. Otherwise, if Mother asks about it tomorrow, I won't be able to answer," Sangwon said and pushed him away. Chapter 238. Shi Fengju helplessly glanced at her, and could only shake his head and get up. 2 women, one old and one young, were already enough for him to deal with. Shi Fengju wondered if he had the energy to deal with a third one in this lifetime. Xingji saw the young master come out with his clothes on, and suddenly remembered this matter when she heard him mention it. She hurriedly smiled and said, "This servant is also muddle-headed. I actually forgot such an important matter." As she said this, she hurriedly went to the small kitchen to bring out the bowl of bird's nest, bowl, and spoon on a tray and served it to him. Shi Fengju finished it in a few mouthfuls, rinsed his mouth, and returned to his room. Sangwon was lying on the bed waiting for him. Seeing him, she smiled and said in surprise, "So fast. I say, you should slow down a bit. How can your stomach bear to eat so ravenously like this?" Shi Fengju didn't say anything. He hugged her and fiercely kissed her lips. Panting for breath, he said in a low voice, "So naggy. Be careful, or this prince will punish you. Stop fooling around." Sangwon's cheeks were flushed from his kiss and her eyes were watery. She said angrily, "You don't know how many things you have to do tomorrow. Why aren't you resting?" Shi Fengju smiled and lay down with her in his arms. He said a few flirtatious words, and then fell asleep. Too many things had happened when he came back today. At this moment he didn't have the mood to make a fuss. The next day, Shi Fengju went to the merchant house and met with a few of the main managers in charge of the shipping. He listened to their reports one by one. Occasionally, 2 or 3 people would ask why Miss Gu didn't come. Shi Fengju casually found an excuse and didn't say anything else. He secretly paid attention to the operation of the ship. Everything was in order, and there was no difference from when he left. In other words, Gu Fengzi really didn't do anything. Shi Fengju naturally didn't believe Gu Fengzi. He didn't believe that she didn't do anything after asking for his mother's help in a roundabout way. It was too strange. Shi Fengju had no choice but to temporarily suppress his misgivings. After Sangwon returned from paying her respects to Wang, she picked out a pair of pearls with a picture of 100 infants, a set of gold and jade jewelry, a white jade rui, and 2 bolts of red and gold embroidered grape brocade. Together with Mama Li, they went to Fuchu Pavilion to visit Shi Lian and add to her dowry. Mama Li joked, "This is going to be fun. Young mistress, you're both sister-in-law and sister-in-law. When we meet in the future, it'll be really interesting." Sangwon couldn't help but laugh. She sighed and said, "Exactly. Right now, I'm still sister-in-law. When I return home in the future and see you, I really don't know if I should call you younger sister or sister-in-law." Mama Li smiled and said, "I heard that second young master will be going to the capital to take up his post soon. I'm afraid we won't see each other often in the future." When Sangwon heard this, she felt a bit reluctant. She smiled and said, "That's right. Just like our second young master, he won't be able to come back for many years. It'll be difficult to see him again in the future." Second brother had passed the spring examinations. This was originally a joyous occasion. The Sang family could finally hold their heads high. However, it just so happened that he received this news at this moment. His joy was greatly reduced. Mama Li saw that Sangwon was a bit sad, and hurriedly changed the topic with a smile. Sangwon understood her good intentions and smiled. Although Fuchu Pavilion was still the same Fuchu Pavilion as before, it was clearly different from before. Even the entrance was decorated with many bright and blooming flowers. It looked very festive. The furnishings and decorations in the room had also been carefully decorated. The curtains had been replaced with smoky multicolored muslin. Apart from Kai Yun, there were also 4 more beautiful maidservants. They were probably the dowry that the head madam had chosen for Shi Lian. When she heard that Sangwon had arrived, Shi Lian was also a bit embarrassed. She was a bride-to-be, and was even more embarrassed than Sangwon. As the host, she had no choice but to personally welcome her. When she saw Sangwon, she lowered her head, not daring to raise it. She bowed and said, "Sister-in-law." "Third sister, there's no need to be so courteous." Sangwon smiled and supported her. She was wearing a lilac and orchid embroidered robe, a snow-green round-collared inner garment, and a white skirt with red plum branches. At her waist, there was a silver and blue wand belt and a white jade doublefish pendant. Her hair was combed into 2 rings, and in addition to the gem-studded hairpins, there was also a beautiful red rose. This dress was much better than her previous simple and low-key appearance. It also made her seem bright and lively. "Sister-in-law, you took care of Big Brother and rushed all the way here, yet you still have time to visit me. It really makes me feel bad." The 2 of them sat down together, and Shi Lian said with a light smile, "Third sister is too polite. I heard about such a happy occasion as soon as I came back, so I should at least come and say congratulations." "Congratulations, third sister. In the future, we will be even closer. I didn't think that you and our Sang family would have such fate," Sangwon said with a smile. As she spoke, she ordered Mama Li and the others to bring the gifts over. Shi Lian was already blushing with embarrassment. She hurriedly thanked her with a smile and ordered Kai Yun and the others to take the gifts and put them away. She also ordered the servants to serve tea. Then she gave them a look and dismissed them. Shi Lian said to Sangwon, "Ever since sister-in-law married into our family, she has always taken care of Shi Lian. Shi Lian has always been grateful. To be able to marry into the Sang family is Shirlian's good fortune. As she spoke, Shirlian was about to stand up and thank Sangwon. Don't. Sangwon supported her and pulled her to sit down. She half-jokingly said, soon, I will have to call you second sister-in-law. How can I feel at ease with you bowing to me like this? Sister-in-law. How could Shirlian endure such teasing? Her face immediately turned so red that she almost couldn't raise her head. After a while, she said softly, in Shirlian's heart, you will always be my sister-in-law. It is my good fortune that you don't dislike a concubine's daughter like me. Sangwon's heart was filled with tenderness. She gently said, don't think like that. Our Sang family is only from the countryside. Although second brother is already in high school, he is still new to politics. I don't know what his future will be like. My second brother is a good person. I only hope that you will be able to share weal and woe with him. He will definitely not let you down. There is also my eldest brother and sister-in-law. Sangwon pondered for a moment before saying, my eldest brother is an extremely honest person. My sister-in-law, on the other hand, is outspoken and cannot tolerate even a grain of sand in her eyes. After you marry into our family, I hope that you can get along well with them. Shirlian nodded. Don't worry, sister-in-law. I will. Since I have married into the Sang family, I am the daughter-in-law of the Sang family. Sharing weal and woe with my husband is my duty. I will definitely respect my eldest brother and sister-in-law. Sangwon smiled and said, you have always had a gentle and kind personality. Kaiyun has been with you for many years and knows you very well. Those few girls from large families are even more arrogant than the young ladies of ordinary families. They are also your maidservants, so I'm afraid that they will have to look at themselves even more highly. Our family is not as ostentatious and extravagant as the Shir family. In my sister-in-law's eyes, what she hates the most is putting on airs. Logically speaking, I shouldn't be the one saying this. I just want to remind you, so that you won't have any enmity with my sister-in-law in the future. If you don't understand my intentions, then just pretend that I didn't say anything. Sister-in-law. Shirlian's eyes couldn't help but redden. She held onto Sangwon's hand and said with a choked voice, only sister-in-law would say such things to me. How could I be such a muddle-headed person and blame you for not understanding your good intentions? I also don't find those maidservants pleasing to the eye. Even though they were chosen for me by my mother, they were still chosen by that person from Peony Park. If they are honest, then that's fine. If they dare to be disrespectful to my master, then I won't have to wait until we are halfway to the capital to deal with them. Sangwon only relaxed after hearing her say this. She smiled and said, it seems that I was worried for nothing. It's good that you know what to do. My sister-in-law is an extremely easy person to get along with. You don't have to worry about anything. Shirlian hurriedly took the opportunity to ask Sangwon many questions about the Sang family. In order for her to be able to get along well with her brother and sister-in-law in the future, Sangwon wanted to make sure that she didn't do anything wrong. With second uncle and second aunt around, who knew what they would do? If a grudge arose between her and her sister-in-law because of this, then it would be difficult to resolve it in the future. Thus, she told her everything in detail. Shirlian carefully noted everything down. Since Sangwon had already returned, and this marriage was arranged with the Sang family, it was reasonable to leave it to Sangwon to handle. Perhaps Gu Fengzi's heart had been completely broken by Shi Fengju last night, so she fell ill again today. At noon, Wang called Sangwon over and instructed her to take over the wedding arrangements. She gave her several meaningful glances, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Sangwon was calm and wasn't afraid of what she would say. The tiny bit of hope in her heart refused to turn into ashes because of Shi Fengju's words. As for herself, she had already calmly let go. Even if she couldn't let go, what could she do? Previously, when Gu Fengzi took over the wedding arrangements, she originally wanted to ask Mama Li to help. But how could Mama Li be willing to listen to her? She said that she couldn't leave Ninggarden because the young master and young mistress weren't around. She had to keep an eye on Ninggarden and secretly pay attention to this matter. Young mistress, who knows how many tricks are involved in this? This old slave believes that he can easily find out. Do you want the old slave to investigate? Find out that greedy schemer? That way, that vixen won't take advantage of being a good person. Mama Lee was eager to give it a try. Among the big families, whenever there was a festive occasion or some kind of important event, it was already a common practice for the stewards and mothers to seek benefits from it. As long as it wasn't too excessive, the masters would turn a blind eye to it and let it pass. Sangwon pondered for a moment, then shook her head and smiled. Hasn't it always been like this? Forget it. It's better to avoid trouble at this time. Mama Lee was a little unwilling and said, that vixen got off too easy. She used the public's money to buy people's hearts. Young mistress, if you don't say a few words, not only will the people below feel lucky, I'm afraid that they'll secretly laugh at young mistress for being muddle-headed. That was true. After thinking about it, Sangwon said, since that's the case, you pick up those who took the biggest share and secretly beat them up. Let them know that we're not muddle-headed. They don't need to hand over the benefits in their hands. Mama, Miss Biao tacitly allowed them to take the benefits, but we took it back. Wouldn't that be hateful? Mama Lee slapped her forehead and said with a smile, Old Slave has been angered to the point of becoming muddle-headed by that vixen. He actually forgot about this. Young mistress is right. Then let's do it. Leave this matter to the old slave. Sangwon smiled and nodded. In the afternoon, when Shi Fengju came back from outside, he was called over by Wang. Chapter 239. Wang felt extremely uncomfortable. First, she grumbled about how disobedient he was. Why was he in such a hurry to go back to work? Didn't he say that he would rest for a few more days? How could Shi Fengju rest after knowing that Gu Fangzi had interfered? He pointed to the heavens and the earth to assure her that he was fine. Only then did Wang let out a sigh and let it go. She still told him to come back earlier every day. Shi Fengju saw that she had finally let go of the matter and quickly agreed. Wang glanced at him and said, You went to Peony Park yesterday? What did you say to Fang? She fell ill again today. Shi Fengju was furious. She fell ill just because of a few words from him? How come he had never seen her so delicate before? Mother, can we not talk about this for now? Maybe she's tired from working so hard these days. How can my words be so effective? Listen to what you're saying, Wang said angrily. Isn't she working so hard for you? You have to let her be at ease, so that she can recover faster. You have to give me a definite answer today. When are you going to consummate your marriage with her? Shi Fengju felt a headache whenever he heard the words Gu Fangzi and consummate. He thought for a moment and said, Mother, Wan Yang's second brother just came in third. They're preparing for a joyous occasion, but I'm in a hurry to consummate my marriage with a concubine. Isn't this going against the Sang clan, and deliberately making them lose face? The Sang brothers both love Wan Yang dearly. How can they not have any thoughts about this? Mother, let's talk about this later. Mother, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. I'm a bit tired and want to go back and rest. When Wang went to Peony Park today and saw Gu Fangzi's yellow and pitiful face, she had decided to get her disobedient son to tell her the truth. However, when she heard that he was tired and wanted to rest, she couldn't say the words that were stuck in her throat. She waved her hand and sighed. All right. Go back and rest first. Let me tell you, don't think that you can get away with this. You have to think carefully. I'm going to ask you again in a few days. Mother Jiang, if I forget, remember to remind me. Also, did Wan Yang serve you the bird's nest yesterday? Eat. How could Wan Yang forget what you asked her to do? Shi Fengju was a little impatient. He thought to himself that he was already in a bad mood as soon as he came back. He might as well have brought Wan Yang out to play. By the way, Mother, do you want to send someone to bring eldest sister back to stay for a few days? Third sister's marriage is a joyous occasion, Shi Fengju suddenly said. If eldest sister comes back, she'll be able to divert some of Mother's attention away from me. Wang couldn't help but laugh. No wonder I feel like there's something on my mind, but I can't remember what it is. Of course we have to bring your eldest sister back. I'll send someone over tomorrow. I wonder if their family is doing well in Mengxian. Shi Fengju agreed and left. That day, the Shi family sent a message to the Sang family, saying that Shi Fengju and Sangwon had returned. The next day, the Sang family sent a matchmaker to the Shi family. At the same time, the Shi family set an auspicious date for the wedding, which was the 8th day of the 6th month. There were still 10 days before the wedding. After the date was set, the final preparations for the wedding started to get busy, purchasing all kinds of mountain products, seafood, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, rice, noodles, and wine, purchasing sweets, fruits, and snacks, checking the tables, chairs, and cutlery for the banquet, inviting the master of ceremonies, preparing the wedding band, preparing the red she character, red silk, and red flowers to be hung throughout the residence, preparing the flowers and bonsai, checking the bride's wedding dress, checking the boxes for the last time to check if there were any mistakes, writing wedding invitations to be distributed to friends and family, and so on. Not only Sangwon, even second old mistress Shi and third old mistress Shi were busy. One couldn't avoid being lazy and personally went to check the dowry. Amidst the hustle and bustle of the household, the bride, Shi Lian, was the most leisurely one. Looking at the bustling household, Shi Lian's heart was filled with emotions at the thought that it was all for her sake. She had never thought that there would be a day where she could hold her head high and be so proud. She had always been a minor character in the household, not even a supporting role. Who would have thought that she would become the center of attention? As the saying goes, the affairs of the world are impermanent. Unexpectedly, the housekeeper who went to Mengxian to pick up Shi Yumei and her husband came back with an empty carriage. He reported to Wang that the eldest son-in-law and eldest missy were not free and would not be coming. Wang was astonished and hurriedly said, "Not free? Our household is holding such a big wedding. They are the elder sister and brother-in-law, so how could they not come back? What could be more important than this? Did you make it clear?" The housekeeper hurriedly replied, "This servant has made it clear. Eldest missy indeed said so." How could Wang believe him? She blamed the housekeeper for being muddle-headed and not knowing how to do things properly. She waved her hand and dismissed him. Then, she called Shi Fengju over and told him to send someone else. Shi Fengju immediately understood what was going on. He smiled and said, "Since mother is still worried, I'll send someone over tomorrow. However, I think that perhaps they really are not free. Doesn't eldest brother-in-law need to revise his homework? Eldest sister needs to take care of him, so how could she leave? I think that if they really can't come, then forget it." Shi Fengju was actually quite helpless when it came to his eldest sister. The Sang family's second brother-in-law had taken third place in the imperial examinations. If someone like eldest brother-in-law found out, he would probably feel extremely uncomfortable. How could he possibly be willing to come? Eldest sister and third sister had never gotten along well. When she heard that third sister had taken third place in the imperial examinations and was now an official, she would become the wife of an official once she married. How could she, who was so headstrong, be willing to come back and congratulate her? If she saw her relatives and friends and asked about it, she would only feel even more sullen. At that time, when he mentioned to his mother that he wanted to bring his eldest sister back, he knew that it was unlikely to happen. However, Wang didn't think about this. She only said, "Then send someone who knows how to do things tomorrow. No matter how busy your eldest sister and eldest brother-in-law are, how could they not write a letter? I really don't know how these people do things." Shi Fengju smiled and didn't say anything. The next day, he didn't send anyone over. He only brought a brocade box to Wang in the evening. Inside the box was a pair of dragon and phoenix carved gold bracelets. He smiled and said to Wang, "Eldest sister and eldest brother-in-law really don't have time to come. Eldest brother-in-law is working hard at an important point. If it breaks, it will be difficult to reattach it. This pair of gold bracelets is their gift to third sister as a dowry." Wang was finally relieved. She smiled and said, "Their lives aren't easy either. If they have money, they should just keep it for themselves. How could they still remember your third sister? You have to tell her to remember how good her eldest sister and eldest brother-in-law are. In the future, she should help them if she can." Shi Fengju casually agreed and retreated. In the blink of an eye, it was the 8th day of the 6th month. Since last night, the Shi family had been particularly lively. Red silk and satin were hung everywhere, and the huge red lantern at the door didn't go out throughout the night. On the day of the wedding, it was even more lively. Everyone who had some status in Qingzhou City had come. Firstly, it was to strengthen the relationship between the two families. Secondly, the Shi family had recruited a son-in-law who came in third. It was also a matter of pride. Who wouldn't show up to curry favor? Not only did those who received the invitation come, but even those who didn't also came uninvited. Fortunately, the Shi family had already expected this. They had arranged for sufficient servants to guide and serve the bride. At the last moment, many people were transferred from the business and the village to help. Although they were busy, there were no mistakes. They sent the bride out of the door in a lively and joyous manner. After that, a banquet was held in the courtyard and hall that had been arranged in advance. The guests were invited, and it was only when the last batch of guests was sent off in the evening. A few of the housekeepers were busy instructing the servants to clean up, check the items, and deliver the items that were stored in the warehouse. As the person in charge, Sangwon, along with the entire Ning garden, was extremely busy. They were busy for 2 whole days before they could barely finish cleaning up. Soon, it was the 3rd day of the wedding for the bride. What Wang and Shi Fengju didn't expect was that on the first day of Shi Lian's return, Shi Yumei actually came back with Cui Zhu. She said that she came back to visit her 3rd sister and 3rd brother-in-law. This caused everyone to be surprised. Wang was naturally happy. That day was another busy day. She ordered the kitchen to prepare the dishes for the banquet at noon. Early in the morning, she ordered the servants to clean up the ancestral hall and prepare incense, candles, paper money, and offerings for their ancestors. At noon, the housekeeper came in to report. 3rd young miss and 3rd young master are back. Shi Fengju, and Sangwon went out to greet them. When they saw each other, they were naturally affectionate. Sangwon hadn't seen her 2nd brother for a long time. Now that she finally saw him, her eyes couldn't help but warm up. She went forward and congratulated him with a smile. Sang Yufei also had a lot to say, but he only smiled at her. After a while he sighed and said, "Because of our matter, we've troubled you, little sister." Sangwon smiled and said, "Second brother, don't say that. I don't know how happy I am to be able to personally organize such a joyous occasion for you. I really didn't expect to have such good fortune in this lifetime." The few of them laughed when they heard it. Only Shi Lian, who had just married into the family, blushed. She lowered her eyes and pursed her lips as she smiled shyly. As they spoke, everyone went in and arrived at the main courtyard where Wang was. At this moment, Wang, 2nd Lord Shi and his wife, and 3rd Old Master Shi and his wife were already seated in the main hall. Shi Yumei stood behind Wang, surrounded by a house full of servants. When Sang Yufei and Shi Lian came in, everyone greeted each other and took their seats. It was lively again. Then a servant brought in a tea tray. Sang Yufei and Shi Lian were about to bow and serve tea. Sang Yufei was now an official. Without waiting for him to kneel, Wang raised her hand and said with a smile, "Please don't." She ordered Nanny Jiang to go forward and support him. Shi Yumei, who was standing behind Wang, had been looking at the couple ever since they entered the hall. Everyone in the hall had a joyous smile on their faces. She was the only one who had a calm expression. She looked reserved and calm, but in fact her heart was so sour that it shrunk. Sang Yufei had a more refined and outstanding temperament compared to the last time she saw him. He was indeed different after making the great leap. Even a common fish had turned into a dragon. She then looked at Shi Lian, who was wearing a bright red robe embroidered with golden peonies, a wide-sleeved gown with 16 patterns of the same color. Her hair was tied up in a bun, and her hair was adorned with bright and luxurious accessories. Shi Yumei felt even more jealous. She couldn't help but secretly blame her mother for agreeing to this marriage. Wasn't she allowing Shi Lian, that wretched girl, to ride on her neck? Her biological daughter couldn't even compare to a concubine's daughter. Did that make her proud? Chapter 240. When she heard Wang instructing Nanny Jiang to help Sang Yufei up, Shi Yumei couldn't help but open her mouth to speak. Who knew that Sang Yufei had already opened his mouth with a smile? He raised his hand to push Nanny Jiang away, and knelt down beside Shirlian in front of Wang. He smiled and said, "This is a family gift, how can it be abandoned? Mother deserves this respect from your son-in-law." Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then they all laughed. Wang Shi was so happy that her face was full of smiles. She kept saying, "Good, good." She happily drank the tea that they offered her and said, "Mother," before giving her a greeting gift. When it was the second Lord Shi and third Old Master Shi's turn, they refused to accept his greeting. Shi Fengju had no choice but to give up after refusing for a while and bowed in his place. After the greeting, they went to the ancestral hall to pay their respects to their ancestors. After that, the second Lord Shi and Shi Fengju invited Sang Yufei to the reception pavilion for a chat. Shi Lian naturally entered the inner chamber to pay her respects to her mother and her two aunts. She recounted in detail how she interacted with her sister-in-law in the Sang household, and listened to her mother's teachings. Wang smiled and said, "I didn't expect your life to be so good. You became the wife of an official the moment you married. In the future, you must serve your husband well, and be filial to your eldest sister-in-law. Don't embarrass our Shi family. As long as you guys live well, I can rest assured as your mother. In the future, I can also meet your father with confidence." Shi Lian hurriedly stood up and bowed in agreement. Wang didn't have much to say to her. After asking a few questions, she ordered her to return to Fuchu Pavilion to rest. Seeing Shi Yumei at the side, she smiled at her and said, "Yumei, you don't have anything to do anyway. It'll be difficult for you sisters to meet again in the future. You should send your third sister over." Wang had put a lot of thought into this. She only hoped that Shi Yumei could build a good relationship with Shi Lian, so that in the future, Sang Yufei could help Ren Jixian. Shi Yumei was reluctant at first, but she suddenly thought of something and agreed with a smile. She went out with Shi Lian. Because she knew that Shi Lian was going to rest at Fuchu Pavilion after returning home 3 days ago, she had already sent people to prepare everything. Everything inside was complete. Even the servants who served tea and snacks had been sent over. Shi Lian had nothing to say to Wang, let alone Shi Yumei. When she saw the place, she was thinking of an excuse to ask Shi Yumei to make herself at home. Unexpectedly, Shi Yumei took the initiative to sit down and looked at her with a smile. Shi Lian didn't know what to say, so she hurriedly ordered Kai Yin to serve tea. Shi Yumei dismissed everyone and looked at Shi Lian from head to toe. She smiled and said, "Third sister, are you used to living in the Sang family? How are the people in their family? Do they treat you well?" Shi Lian heard that her question was a little out of place, and felt a little unhappy. She smiled and said, "Big brother and sister-in-law are both very easy to get along with. They treat me well." "I think so too." Shi Yumei sighed softly and said carelessly, "For a family like theirs to be able to marry a young lady from a family like ours, who knows how many lifetimes of good fortune they have accumulated? How could it not be good? I'm afraid that even our family's servant girl knows the rules better than them, and is more knowledgeable. When they see our family's extravagance, they'll definitely worship you like a fairy. A third sister, you really have a good life. Marrying into a small family, you won't have to suffer. Although your life is a little hard, it's actually quite good." "That's right. What dowry did mother give you? There should be a lot of fertile land, right? The Sang family has really made a fortune this time. Where else can you find such a good marriage?" Shi Lian suddenly felt as if she had swallowed a fly. Everyone in the Sang family treated her as a family member. Her sister-in-law was very close to her, and her nephews and nieces also called her second aunt affectionately with smiles. In the depths of her heart, she had already treated them as her family. Hearing Shi Yumei's words was especially grating. Shi Lian tried to restrain herself, but in the end, she didn't say anything sarcastic. She only smiled vaguely. It wasn't that she didn't want to or didn't dare to, but that she couldn't. She had married into a better family than Shi Yumei, so it was normal for Shi Yumei to be jealous. Today was a big day for returning home, and Shi Yumei was used to being arrogant and overbearing. She definitely didn't know what it meant to keep the peace. If she didn't agree with her, she would definitely take the opportunity to make a big fuss. When that happened, it wouldn't look good on everyone's faces. Why bother? Who knew that even though she didn't answer, Sure you may wouldn't let her go. She continued to ask with a smile. Third sister, tell me, is what I said reasonable? Is it like what I said? AI, that Sang family really knows how to scheme. You've always been an honest person, so you have to take out some money in the future. Don't ruin our Sure family's reputation, and let others look down on us. I've heard that the Sang family's sister-in-law is a person with a sharp tongue. That country bumpkin, if you were to be controlled by her, it would really be embarrassing. Big sister. Shirley-Ann heard that her words were getting more and more out of hand, so she smiled and said softly, since ancient times, a married woman has to follow her husband. I don't have as much knowledge as big sister. I only know how to serve my husband and be filial to my brother and sister-in-law. I don't dare to listen to big sister's words. That's why I said you're an honest person. Sure you may snort it. Just take out some money as a young miss. What can they do to you? Our young miss marrying into their family is their gain, isn't it? Don't tell me you don't feel wronged. Don't you feel that you're marrying beneath yourself? Shirley-Ann said. Marrying a chicken follows the chicken, marrying a dog follows the dog. Shirley-Ann's marriage will be arranged by mother. No matter what, Shirley-Ann is willing. Shirley-Ann's intention was to express that she didn't have any thoughts about this marriage, and to ask her to stop talking about it. She had completely accepted the reality, so whatever she said would be useless. Unexpectedly, Sure Yume sighed softly and said with pity, Third sister, you even said something like, marrying a chicken follows the chicken, marrying a dog follows the dog. Look at how wronged you are. You really are an honest person. If you don't want this marriage, why didn't you say so earlier? Even if you're too embarrassed to tell mother, you can write a letter to me. I'll definitely help you make the decision. Before Sure Yume could finish her words, Sangwon came in with Luya. Shirley-Ann's face suddenly turned pale. Sure Yume secretly praised her. She pretended not to see Sangwon and continued to speak to Shirley-Ann in a pitying tone. Alas, now that the rice has been cooked, it's too late for you to regret it. What should we do? You should be more open-minded in the future. If you don't want to go to the capital to suffer, why don't I talk to mother? You can say that mother can't bear to part with you and wants you to stay at home for a while. Big sister. Shirley-Ann was so anxious that tears almost jumped out of her eyes. Before Sure Yume could finish, she quickly interrupted her. When did I mean that or say that? Big sister, don't misunderstand. I never meant that. Hey, we're not outsiders. You don't have to hide anything in front of me. Sure Yume acted like a caring big sister. Shirley-Ann was so anxious that she couldn't explain herself. Then, she pretended to inadvertently glance at the door, and abruptly stopped what she wanted to say. She smiled and said, Oh sister-in-law, you're here. Hee hee, you just arrived, right? Big sister, third sister. Sangwon came in with a smile and said, I came to see third sister. I didn't expect big sister to be here too. Sure Yume stood up and said with a smile, Then you can talk first. I'm going to mother. Big sister, take care. Sangwon nodded with a smile. Sister-in-law, Shirley-Ann stood up in a hurry. Third sister. Sangwon held her hand and squeezed it slightly. Between you and me, there's no need to explain. How could I not know what kind of person you are? Sister-in-law, you really believe me? Shirley-Ann was surprised and happy. She stared nervously at Sangwon with tears in her eyes. Sangwon sighed inwardly. Some people just couldn't bear to see others living better than her. It wasn't right for others to live better than her. She only felt better when she provoked others. Of course. Sangwon nodded with a smile. If I didn't even know this, then I wouldn't have known you. If you really looked down on our family, you wouldn't have asked me about this before you got married. Sister-in-law. Thank you. Shirley-Ann blinked and turned her face away. She hurriedly invited Sangwon to sit down with a smile, and ordered her to serve tea. Then she lifted her handkerchief to wipe her eyes. Eldest sister was too crafty and vicious, seizing on the loophole in her words, twisting words and forcing logic and rudely adding on. Her twisted logic was clear and logical. If eldest sister-in-law had any ideas in her heart because of this, she would mention it to her maternal family. Her future days were destined to be sullen. Although her husband had feelings for her, she knew very well how much he respected his big brother and sister-in-law, and how much he cherished his family. Sangwon smiled and skipped the topic. She asked her with a smile, "Have you gotten used to it these few days? My big brother and sister-in-law are very easy to get along with. I didn't lie to you, did I?" Shirley nodded with a smile. Speaking of her husband's family, her eyes became gentle, and her lips couldn't help but curl into a smile. She then told Sangwon about it. Of course, there were also discordant notes, which were the 3 maidservants other than Kai Yun. However, servants were still servants in the end. Even after entering the Sang household, they still treated themselves as if they were the head maidservants of the Shi household. Their fates were not any better. Shirley did not mention these troublesome matters to Sangwon. When Sangwon heard that she got along well with her brother and sister-in-law's family, she was completely relieved. Sister-in-law was a good person, but not everyone could tolerate her temper. Shirley's temperament was gentle, and she didn't have the style of a young lady from a noble family. If second brother were to marry a proper daughter of a wealthy family, or a young miss of an official's family, she was afraid that the situation would be completely different. "That's right. Did second uncle and second aunt cause trouble for you?" Thinking of Ryo Kuwabara and his wife, Sangwon asked. Shirley was a new daughter-in-law. It was not convenient for Fong Fong to tell her about the messy affairs of the first and second branches of the Sang family. However, if her second aunt tried to sow discord and Shirley did it without knowing the situation, Fong Fong would definitely be unhappy. Therefore, Sangwon felt that it was necessary to tell her about the history of the 2 branches. "No," Shirley shook her head. After a moment of hesitation, she said, "What about second uncle and second aunt?" "My husband also mentioned to me a few times about them. He said that I should listen to sister-in-law and let her make the decision." She then smiled and said, "In any case, we will be going to the capital soon. I'm afraid that we won't have the chance to see them." Chapter 241. Sang Yufei naturally wouldn't speak ill of his elders in front of his newly married wife, but Shirley wasn't stupid either. She could easily tell that her husband's family and second uncle's family had a grudge against each other. Her eldest brother was so honest, and her husband was also a gentleman. From her point of view, no matter what happened in the past, second uncle's family was definitely in the wrong. Sang Yufei found it hard to talk about this matter, but he didn't know that Shirley had seen it before. Cousin Gu and her father, as well as her eldest sister and her husband, were all living examples. The Sang family also had their own problems, so in her eyes it was normal. Sangwon smiled and said, "That's good. Sister-in-law knows about these matters. Let her speak out to save you from being taken advantage of." She then asked curiously, "Based on what you said earlier, could it be that you haven't met them?" "That's impossible." Although the 2 families had severed ties on the surface, it was impossible for Ryo Kuwabara and his wife not to join in on such a joyous occasion like Sang Yufei's wedding. The Sang brothers, including Fong, couldn't possibly chase them out of the door. Could it be that they really had a complete change of heart? Or did something happen later on that caused the relationship between the 2 families to completely sever? Sangwon's heart suddenly skipped a beat. She suddenly remembered the letter she wrote to her eldest brother and sister-in-law after Lee came to visit. Could it be that sister-in-law had used that letter to teach them a lesson? If that was the case, then that's right. Shirley didn't know what Sangwon was thinking at that moment. She smiled and said, "They weren't home when we got married. I heard from sister-in-law that they left the village a month ago. I don't know where they went. Right now there are only 2 cousins left in their family." Shirley couldn't help but recall what Fong had said at that time. "Sister-in-law, you're lucky. On your wedding day, those 2 troublemakers weren't there. Otherwise, it would have been very lively." There were also his 2 cousins. Sang Yen was well behaved, but Sang Ro was a little too enthusiastic, always wanting to rub against him. "There's such a thing." Sangwon was shocked and hurriedly said, "Big brother and sister-in-law. Do you know where they went? What would make them leave their homes?" Li loved Sang Yen so much, but he was willing to abandon her and go with Ryo Kuwabara. This matter was strange no matter how one looked at it. Lian shook her head. Sister-in-law didn't mention it. Sangwon replied with an, "Oh," and didn't ask any more questions. Lian didn't know much about the Sang family, so she decided to ask her second brother when she had the chance. The two of them chatted for a while more before a maidservant came to inform them that it was time to eat. The two of them hurriedly got up with smiles on their faces and headed towards the main courtyard. Since they were all from the same family, there wasn't much to be said. There were 2 tables in the main hall for men and women to sit at. At the table, other than Yume, who was eating with a straight face and didn't pay attention to anyone else, the atmosphere was quite good. The meal ended in a lively atmosphere. As usual, they couldn't spend the night after returning home. Seeing that it was getting late, Wang didn't ask them to stay any longer. She only smiled and reminded them to stay for a few days before leaving when they went to the capital. Sang Yufei and Lian both agreed. Wang then taught Lian a few things. It was nothing more than the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, as well as being a good wife and educating children. Lian agreed to them one by one. Who knew that Yume would suddenly say with a smile, "Third sister, don't just agree. Remember to keep it in your heart. Third brother-in-law is an official, so his reputation is the most important. Third sister, you have to be virtuous. Remember to arrange for a few beautiful concubines who are skilled in calligraphy and painting for third brother-in-law. In the future, when third brother-in-law goes out to entertain his colleagues, he will have face if he brings them out to serve him." Yume giggled as she spoke, but the people around them looked at each other in dismay. The new daughter-in-law returned home 3 times, but the biological sister didn't wish her younger sister and brother-in-law to grow old together and treat each other with respect. Instead, she kept talking about beautiful concubines. How could there be such a sister in the world? Lian didn't know whether to agree or not. Her face flushed red for a moment. Yume didn't let her go. Instead, she took it a step further and said with a smile, "Third sister, do you remember? Third sister, don't say anything. Could it be that you don't agree with eldest sister and want to be a jealous woman?" Yume. Wang finally couldn't listen to her anymore. She said angrily, "What nonsense are you talking about? How can your third sister be a jealous woman?" Sang Yufei smiled faintly and said, "Mother-in-law is right. The daughter you teach is naturally virtuous. How can I be a jealous woman? Yufei appreciates eldest sister's kind guidance. However, there are so many scholars in this world. Not all of them are like eldest brother-in-law, who likes beautiful concubines to serve him. Yufei has a virtuous wife. Thank you for your concern, eldest sister." Yume's chest tightened as she glared angrily at Sang Yufei. Lian's gaze shifted slightly as she met her husband's gaze. However, her heart was filled with joy as it rippled in circles. She knew that she didn't misjudge him. The most correct thing she had done in her life was to take a fancy to him and marry him. It's getting late. Mother, let my second brother and the others go back quickly. Otherwise, it will be dark before they get home. Sangwon saw that the situation was a bit awkward and hurriedly came forward with a smile. That's good too. Wang nodded and smiled. She instructed Shifengju and Sangwon to see them off properly. She also smiled and said that there would be plenty of time in the future. When they passed by in the capital, they must visit the residence. Thus, the 2 sides said goodbye and went their separate ways. Taking advantage of the time to see them off, Sangwon secretly gave Sang Yufei a look. The 2 siblings talked for a while. Sangwon then asked him about second uncle and second aunt leaving home. Sang Yufei frowned slightly and said, "I also feel that this matter is a bit strange. I heard eldest sister-in-law say that someone came to pick them up. I don't know what they said, but the next day, second uncle and second aunt happily followed that person with the new concubine. Someone in the village saw them and asked about it. Second uncle said that they were going to make a fortune, but he was interrupted by the person who came to pick them up. No one else in the village knows about this matter." Sangwon said, "Make a fortune? No wonder second uncle and second aunt were persuaded. However, they weren't stupid. How could they be so easily tricked by someone? Since they happily followed that person, it meant that that person must have a reason that they had to believe. Who could it be? This matter has nothing to do with our family. They aren't children who don't know anything. Since they trust that person, they must have a trustworthy reason. Why should we worry about it? Look at how much weight you've lost. Now that brother-in-law has returned safely, you have to take good care of your body. Don't tire yourself out too much. If you have any difficulties, don't hesitate to tell your older brother. Don't treat your older brother as an outsider. Sang Yufei looked at her with a gentle smile. In the past, he couldn't protect her. Now that he had the title of chief steward, if she needed it, he wouldn't hesitate to do anything for her. Speaking of which, the two of them were living under someone else's roof, in front of their eldest brother and eldest sister-in-law. In the days when they didn't have parents, they were truly in the same boat. Although their eldest brother and sister-in-law were also relatives, they didn't have the obligation to raise and take care of them. At that time, he was desperately studying, and she was trying her best to reduce her presence. She didn't want to add any trouble to the family. In terms of intimacy, the two of them were closer than the two of them. Sangwon was moved. She nodded with a smile and said, "Second brother can rest assured. If there's anything I need to trouble second brother, I won't be polite with second brother. As long as second brother and his wife have a harmonious relationship, I'll be satisfied." Sang Yufei's eyes couldn't help revealing a gentle look. With a smile he said, "You and brother-in-law have to be well. When you have news in your stomach, don't forget to write a letter to tell your second brother. Let your second brother be happy for you." Second brother. Sangwon's face turned red. She lowered her eyes and forced out a smile. Sang Yufei saw her tender smile, and didn't mention it again. The carriage was already prepared, so he got in the carriage with Shi Lian. The two sides said their goodbyes and left. A long time after the carriage left, Sangwon was still looking forward in a daze. She suddenly let out a low sigh and felt a sense of loss. A low chuckle came from beside her. Sangwon turned her head and looked at the man beside her. "Let's go back. This important matter has been smoothly completed. You've been tired these past few days, so you should have a good rest." Shi Fengju looked at her sharp little face and felt a bit of heartache. First, she took care of him on the way back, and then this important matter. These past few days, she often slept in the middle of the night and fell asleep as soon as her head hit the pillow. He didn't even have the heart to turn over in fear of waking her up. Sangwon smiled at him. "You've also been tired these past few days. There's no rush in the business, so let the shopkeepers take care of it. Mother told me to take good care of you." Shi Fengju smiled, and then whispered something into her ear that made Sangwon laugh. She looked at him angrily and wanted to say something, but she held back. She only smiled and said, "Let's go back." Then she went back with him. The two of them first went to report to Wang before returning to Ning Garden. After entering the warm room, Shi Fengju raised his hand to stop the people following them. Before Sangwon could react, he picked her up. What are you doing?" Sangwon was shocked and almost cried out. "I'm carrying you." Shi Fengju smiled and said, "You're tired, so rest well. I'll take care of you today, so you don't have to worry about anything." As he spoke, he walked over to the Kong bed and put Sangwon down. He then squatted down and gently removed her shoes. He helped her lie down and said with a smile, "Lie down for a while. Let's talk." Sangwon saw that he was in high spirits and didn't want to dampen his spirits. She smiled and lay down, covering herself with a thin blanket. Just as she closed her eyes in comfort, Shi Fengju smiled and pushed her again. "Hey, move in a bit and leave some space for me. I'll lie down with you." Sangwon had no choice but to move further inside and grumble. "You told me to have a good rest, yet here you are, making a fuss." "I'm staying with you. How is that making trouble?" Shi Fengju smiled and unceremoniously pulled the thin blanket to cover himself. He turned to face her and put his arm around her waist, pulling her into his arms. "Don't worry and sleep. I told you not to disturb me. If there's anything, Mama Lee and the others will take care of it." Sangwon mumbled an "in" and leaned into his arms. She was wrapped in his familiar scent. After a while she really did fall asleep. When Sangwon woke up, the light in the room had become hazy and there were shadows in the room. She was shocked and quickly sat up, saying, "What time is it?" Chapter 242. Shi Fengjiu had only closed his eyes for a short while, but he had already woken up. He was looking at her with a smile on his face, and was startled by her sudden movement. He quickly sat up and patted her shoulder with a smile. "What are you yelling about? It's fine if it's late. There's nothing else to do today. Why didn't you wake me up? It's already time to light the lanterns. We've been in this room for half a day. What will the maidservants think?" Sangwon couldn't help but grumble as she glared at him. Shi Fengjiu was already used to her being like this. He smiled and said, "This courtyard is filled with our servants. Who would dare to gossip? You're always too careful." As they spoke, the two of them got off the Kong bed and put on their shoes. Before they could put on their shoes properly, they heard Luya's penetrating voice. "Eldest Missy, you're here." Sangwon was so frightened that she almost sprained her ankle. She hurriedly put on her shoes. Shi Fengjiu's low laughter came from above her head. She couldn't help but glare at him. "You can still laugh. If your eldest sister comes in and sees this, I don't know what she'll say in front of mother." "Then just don't get up." Shi Fengjiu found it funny. "Don't get up?" Sangwon looked down at her slightly wrinkled and messy clothes and her slightly loose hair bun. She was in a daze when Shi Fengjiu picked her up and laid her down on the Kong bed. He took off her shoes and said with a low laugh, "Just lie down. I'll go out and take a look." Shi Yumei glanced at Luya and snorted. "What? I can't come at this time." "Eldest Missy, this servant doesn't dare to accept such words. This servant doesn't deserve this. Eldest Missy, please come in." Luya shouted again. Shi Yumei suddenly stopped and looked at her. "Go ahead. Why are you shouting so loudly? I'm not deaf." "The manor has been bustling with noise these past few days. This servant has been running around to pass on messages. If I don't shout, how can others hear me clearly?" Who knew that he still couldn't change? "It's all this servant's fault," Luya hurriedly said with a smile. Hearing her mention Shi Lian's lively wedding, although Shi Yumei didn't attend, she could imagine how lively it must have been. Her heart ached even more, and her face darkened. She said coldly, "How can you be so happy with such a small event? Ignorant." Luya didn't notice the disdain in Shi Yumei's words at all. She nodded honestly and said with a smile, "How could this servant dare to compare herself with eldest Missy? This servant is naturally ignorant." Shi Yumei was neither soft nor hard. She felt that it would be beneath her dignity to do something about it, so she suppressed her anger and asked as she walked inside, "Where's your master? Do they not welcome me or something? Why can't I see anyone?" Luya forced a smile and didn't know what to say. She saw Shi Fengjiu lift the curtain and walk out of the warm room. He smiled and called out, "Big sister. You're here too." Shi Yumei was startled. She couldn't help but look in the direction of the warm room. "Why aren't the lights lit at this time?" "Oh," Shi Fengjiu casually said with a smile. "I just came from the study room and found out that Wan Yang is resting inside because she's not feeling well. Big sister, are you here for something?" Shi Yumei didn't say anything after hearing this. She sighed and didn't say anything else. Shi Fengjiu understood that she had something to say. He ordered the servants to serve tea and gave them a look to stop. He then smiled and said, "Big sister, if you have something to say, feel free to say it." Shi Yumei wanted to say something but hesitated a few times. In the end she sighed and said, "I plan to go home tomorrow. What can happen to me? It's all about the troubles at home. Second brother, you're so smart. There's nothing you don't know." Shi Fengjiu indeed knew. In fact, everyone in the Shi family knew that the only thing that could make Shi Yumei so embarrassed was her husband complaining again. "I've already instructed the Jean housekeeper to send money to Big Sister's family at the beginning of every month. Did the Jean housekeeper not follow my instructions?" Shi Fengjiu's eyes narrowed slightly. No. Shi Yumei hurriedly said, "The Jean housekeeper will send money over on the first day of every month. It's just that. You also know that your big brother-in-law has a lot of friends. He often goes to poetry gatherings and literary gatherings, so his expenses are a little high." Shi Fengjiu sighed in his heart, but he didn't intend to indulge this arrogant big brother-in-law of his. If he helped him with the money, it would be a waste. Not only would he not be grateful, his appetite would only grow bigger and bigger. just by looking at how he didn't even show his face during the Sher family's wedding, and then sent his wife to ask for money while he hid behind her without saying a word. It was obvious that he didn't care about the Sher family at all. Why should he help this kind of person? Sher Fengju subconsciously recalled Sangwon's suggestion that he should persuade his big sister to divorce, and his heart actually wavered a little. If things were to continue like this, it would be better to have a clean divorce. Without money to attend poetry gatherings, your brother-in-law's friends don't really like him anymore. They don't even invite him to gatherings on normal days. Your brother-in-law is annoyed, so he vents his anger at home. What do you mean by behind closed doors? His brain is already numb, and he doesn't know what's going on at all, so how can he improve? Not to mention the next subject. I'm afraid he won't even pass the next subject. I'm really worried to death. With him like this, there's no way he can calm down and revise his studies. If he keeps failing, what hope does Big Sister have in the future? Second brother, why don't I write you an IOU, so you can help us again? Sher Fengju paused for a while before saying, Big Sister, don't indulge brother-in-law too much. Look at second Uncle Sang and our third brother. Aren't they all studying hard and burying their heads in their studies? When did they ever attend so many poetry gatherings? How can people who truly study have the time to do those leisurely things? You'd better advise brother-in-law to restrain himself and focus on studying behind closed doors. Besides, it's not like you don't know those friends of his. How many of them are decent? It's actually a good thing for those people to leave him. Now that you're doing this for him, I'm afraid that if he passes in the future, he won't even have you in his eyes. Big Sister, I think you should make a good plan as soon as possible. Sher Fengju's last sentence was just to test his sister's feelings. Seeing that his sister's expression changed slightly after he spoke, he regretted asking. Sure enough, Sher Yume said with some displeasure. I'm just asking for your help. If you're not willing, and feel that I'm taking advantage of you, then just say it. I won't blame you for this. After all, this isn't something you should care about, and I'm not that unreasonable. Yes, your brother-in-law's temper is a bit strange, but he's also a decent person. Although his words are a bit unpleasant at times, he's never done anything to let me down. I have nothing to say if you compare him to your second brother-in-law. Your second brother-in-law is just lucky. But you shouldn't belittle your brother-in-law like this, right? I'm just a woman, and my husband is my life support. His future is where all my hopes lie. You're asking me to make a plan as soon as possible, but what can I do? Aren't you clearly harboring ill intentions? As she spoke, she became angry again and said angrily, In the past, you would never say such things to me. Did someone instigate you? Who's so evil and wicked that they can't bear to see me living well? They'll only be satisfied if my family is ruined. Sher Yume suddenly raised her voice when she said the last two sentences. Intentionally or unintentionally. She glanced in the direction of the warm room. Sangwon suddenly sat up, somewhat baffled. She didn't hear clearly what Sher Fengju and his sister were talking about, but Sher Yume's angry words were clearly directed at her. She couldn't help but feel annoyed. She didn't know how she had offended this bodhisattva for no reason. Big Sister. Sher Fengju inwardly mocked himself. He thought that he had hit the nail on the head this time. Although it wasn't Wan Yang who instigated him, Wan Yang was also doing it out of kindness. Big Sister's reaction was secretly making Wan Yang feel wronged. Big Sister, can you just take it that I'm spouting nonsense? I'll apologize to you. Don't think too much. There's no one who instigated you behind your back. Sher Fengju hurriedly apologized with a smile. Seeing him like this, Sher Yume didn't know what to say anymore. She said, I was just saying. Second brother, don't take it to heart. Big Sister, you're treating me like an outsider. We're related by blood and flesh. Why would I take it to heart? Sher Fengju hurriedly said with a smile. That's good. That's good. Sher Yume said again. By the way, I wonder if Big Sister has eaten dinner yet? Sher Fengju asked with a smile. Sher Yume then remembered that her younger brother probably hadn't eaten yet. She could only stand up and smile. I've already eaten at Mother's place. Then I won't disturb you any longer. I'll go back first. Shifengju nodded and stood up to send her off. Big sister, take care. Seeing that he did not mention anything about the money, Shi Yumei was slightly disappointed. However, since she had already stood up to leave, she would feel embarrassed if she were to ask again. Thus, she could only swallow her words and leave with a forced smile. Shifengju sent her out and returned to the warm room. At this time, Luya and Xingji had already come in and lit the lamp. They were helping Sangwon to get up. When Sangwon saw Shifengju come in, she ordered the two of them to fetch water to wash his face. Then she asked Shifengju, "Big sister said those words just now. Did I offend her in any way?" Shifengju knew that she would definitely ask him this question. He hurriedly smiled and said, "No. I was careless and said something that made her think wrongly. It really has nothing to do with you." Sangwon looked up and glanced at him deeply. After a moment she said, "Oh. It would be strange if she believed him." Shifengju smiled bitterly and shook his head. He hurriedly pulled her over and put his arm around her shoulder. "Wanyang, don't think too much. Big sister just came back. You two haven't even spoken much. How could you offend her?" Sangwon said lightly, "The one who's thinking too much isn't me. It's her. You don't have to say this to me. I'm fine." Luya and the others came in with water. They washed their faces and rinsed their mouths. Not long after, they asked the servants to set up the table and eat together with Shifengju. Shi Yumei thought about the boastful words she said to her husband when she returned to her maternal home. She suddenly felt irritated. She blamed her husband for not living up to her expectations, and blamed her brother for not giving her any face. She couldn't think of anything. In the end, she could only brace herself and tell Wang a lie. She took 400 taels of silver from Wang and gave up. Sang Yufei's schedule in Shangjing was very tight. After 7 or 8 days, she set foot on the journey to Shangjing. Chapter 243. Wang gave Shirlian 2 concubines and 4 maidservants as dowry. After Shirlian's husband and sister-in-law discussed it, they decided to leave one of the concubines at home to help take care of the dowry land, while they took the 4 maidservants and the other concubine to go to the capital. Except for Kai Yun, the other 3 maidservants were all eager to try. They had long regarded themselves as the son-in-law's people. Seeing Sang Yufei's handsome appearance and the fact that he came in third, they were even more in awe of him. They felt that they were of high birth and could be considered to be knowledgeable. As for the young master, although he had limitless prospects, he was born in the countryside and had never seen any beauties before. Therefore, they were full of confidence. Intentionally or unintentionally, they liked to play coquettishly in front of Sang Yufei. Shirlian looked on coldly and pretended not to see. Kai Yun was so angry that she gritted her teeth and cursed behind her back. Sang Yufei secretly sneered. He was not Renjixian. Would he be infatuated with the dowry maidservants? In his heart, he disliked them even more than Shirlian. The two had already secretly discussed that they would sell these 3 people on the way to the capital, so as to avoid any trouble in the capital. On the day of departure, Sang Yufei and Shirlian both bid farewell to Sang Hong and his wife. Thinking that they would be separated for at least 2 or 3 years, Sang Hong's eyes couldn't help but become moist. His mood was also very complicated. He was happy and proud, but also sad and reluctant. "After you settle down there, don't forget to write a letter, so that we won't miss you at home. The capital's expenses are high. If you lack money, write a letter and tell us. Although our family is not very rich, thanks to you, we can be considered good. We can always help you." Sang Hong patted his second brother's shoulder and said. Sang Yufei hurriedly agreed. Feng liked that Shirlian was gentle, polite and sensible. Although they had only known each other for a few days, she was still reluctant to part with her. She held her hand and said with a smile, "We will take care of the family's fields and properties. As for the dowry that you didn't take away, I will pack it up and lock it up. I heard that the prices in the capital are high, and the people there are powerful. Don't be too tight on money. I calculated yesterday that the family's fields and shops produce about 700 to 800 taels a year. I think it's enough for you to live well in the capital." Shirlian's heart warmed when she heard this. Although she wasn't the favored daughter of the family, She didn't really care about 700 to 800 taels of silver. However, Fong was willing to give them all of her earnings this year. This kind of kindness was something that couldn't be exchanged with money. Sister-in-law, you and big brother, as well as little Quan and little Nguyen, have to lead a better life at home. That way we can rest assured. We brought a lot of money to the capital. Moreover, our husband has a salary, so we won't be too tight on money. Sister-in-law, don't worry, Shi Lian said with a smile. However, Sang Hong sighed and said, but most of the money you brought is your dowry. It's best if you don't use it. You should keep it well. Shi Lian hurriedly said with a smile. Big brother, you're treating me like an outsider. There's no distinction between me and my husband. In the future, when my husband gets promoted and increases his salary, he can return it to me. Everyone laughed when they heard this. Big brother, don't worry. I know what to do. Sang Yufei also said with a smile. He wasn't a pedantic person. If he really needed to use money and didn't have any other sources of money, there was nothing wrong with using his wife's money. Just as she said, he would return it to her in the future. Since they were husband and wife, they should share weal and woe together. Seeing that it was getting late, Sang Hong was afraid that they would delay their journey, so he urged them to set off. Sang Yufei and Shi Lian said their goodbyes again and again, then got into the car and left. When they arrived at Qingzhou City, they arrived at the Shi family again. After staying at the Shi family for 3 days, Sang Yufei and Shi Fenghua had a discussion. After that, they went to Magistrate Hong's residence as a guest. Under Shi Fengju's arrangement, they took a boat to the capital. After Magistrate Hong met Sang Yufei, he deeply praised his talent and character. He also knew that with the Shi family's huge financial backing, Sang Yufei would be like a fish in water in the capital. After 1 or 2 years in the Hanlin Academy, it wouldn't be a problem for him to enter either the Ministry of Appointments or the Ministry of Revenue. He couldn't help but secretly make up his mind to take good care of the Shi family, so that Shi Fengju would owe him a favor in the future. Therefore, when he accidentally overheard his good-for-nothing son muttering that Sang Yufei's wife was his grandaunt, he immediately flew into a rage. Ignoring his wife's dissuasion, he ruthlessly gave his son a beating. A few days after Sang Yufei and his wife left the Shi family, an uninvited guest came to the Shi family in the morning. This person was wearing a brand new royal blue round-collared robe made of Hangzhou silk and a pair of black boots. He even used a jade hairpin to tie up his hair. From the back, he looked like an elegant and wealthy man. However, from the front, he was very disappointing. This person was close to 50 years old. He had a pair of puffy eyes, high cheekbones, yellow wrinkled skin, thin lips, and 2 wisps of a mustache. He had a careful and ingratiating smile on his face. At first glance, one could tell that he wasn't someone of status. This person was Ryo Kuwabara. I wonder if Miss Gu is here? Ryo Kuwabara asked the gatekeeper with a smile. Miss Gu. The gatekeeper saw that this old man was asking if Miss Gu was here. He couldn't help but look at him from the corner of his eyes and vigilantly asked, Who are you? Why are you looking for Miss Gu? Why, of course it was to ask for help. Ryo Kuwabara hurriedly said, My name is Ryo Kuwabara. I'll have to trouble you to inform Miss Gu that Ryo Kuwabara is looking for her for an urgent matter. As he spoke, he took out a piece of silver from his lapel and stuffed it into the gatekeeper's hand with a flattering smile. The gatekeeper saw that the silver was about 2 or 3 coins. He weighed it in his heart and thought that it was better than nothing. He pointed to the side and said, Stand there and don't block the way. I'll go ask for you. Before Ryo Kuwabara could say thank you, the gatekeeper stopped and looked at him from head to toe. Your surname is Sang? Could it be that you are a relative of our family's young mistress? Other than young mistress's relatives, the Shi family didn't seem to have any other relatives or friends with the surname Sang. This was one of the benefits of being a gatekeeper. He had a good understanding of the social relationships in the Shi family. Ah, no. Ryo Kuwabara was shocked and hurriedly shook his hands to deny it. What a joke! How would he dare to admit it? If Wan Yang knew what he had done, she would definitely tear him apart. That Miss Gu who was full of smiles and treated people kindly was much easier to talk to. He could only throw away his pride and beg the kind Miss Gu. As for Wan Yang, it was best that she didn't know. If you're not, then you're not. Why are you so agitated? The gatekeeper glared at him and turned to find someone to pass on the message. As for why Ryo Kuwabara appeared here, it all started from 2 months ago. At that time, Shifengju was recuperating in Handan, and Sangwon also rushed to Handan to take care of him. Gu Fangzi had interfered with the Shi family's shipping business through Wang, so she set her sights on Ryo Kuwabara and Li. Ever since she accidentally bumped into Li in the garden that day, Gu Fangzi saw clearly what kind of person Li was and had a vague idea in her heart. After that, she secretly sent someone to Sai village in Yanglu town to investigate. When they found out about the dispute between Ryo Kuwabara and Sang Hong, Gu Fangzi was so happy that she almost laughed out loud. With such a ready-made person in front of her, if she didn't make good use of him, even she would look down on herself. Thus, one afternoon, a horse carriage drove into Sai village. A person came down from the carriage and knocked on the door of Ryo Kuwabara's house. The person called himself Husan and said with a smile, "Are you Ryo Kuwabara's second master Sang? I was sent by Miss Gu of the Qingzhou Shi family. May I know if second mistress is in? You're looking for my mistress?" Ryo Kuwabara saw that Husan wasn't even 30 years old, and his wife was an old vegetable. He didn't suspect anything, but felt that it was strange. "It was Miss Gu who sent me to see second mistress." Miss Gu and second mistress felt like old friends at first sight. Second mistress naturally understood when she heard that it was Miss Gu. Husan said with a smile. Although Ryo Kuwabara was a little suspicious, he still invited Husan into the house. He told Sang-ro to bring Li back. When Li heard Husan mention Miss Gu, she saw that he had met Gu Fangzi in the garden, and saw that he had taken out a pair of golden hairpins as a gift. She didn't have any doubts anymore, and was happy and proud. She praised Gu Fangzi, and her words of praise were like a torrential river. Husan didn't expect this woman to be so nonsensical when she started talking, so he didn't interrupt her. He could only smile and praise his master a few words. Ryo Kuwabara's brain wasn't muddled. He knew that Husan didn't come all the way here just to take a look, give a small gift or say a few words of praise. He coughed and interrupted Li and asked with a smile, "Little brother Husan, is there anything else?" When Husan heard this, he was like a pillow sent to him. He quickly nodded and said, "That's right. It's like this. Our Shi family's shipping company is currently lacking someone to guard the warehouse. Guarding the warehouse is a simple job. Remember to close the door when you enter and leave, and patrol the area at night. Don't let anyone enter and leave to steal anything from the warehouse. However, the person in charge of this job must be someone trustworthy. Only then can one feel at ease, right? Miss Gu is now in charge of this matter, so she sent this lowly one to ask if second old master has the intention to do so." Firstly, Miss Gu and second old mistress Gu hit it off at first sight. She also knows that your situation isn't too good. This job is easy, and it's good to earn some money to support the family. Secondly, you are young mistress's family, so naturally you are trustworthy. Miss Gu can rest assured if she leaves this matter to you. No problem, no problem. When Ryo Kuwabara heard that he was going to work for the Shi family, he was elated. How could he refuse? Not to mention that this job was simple. Even if it wasn't, once he entered the Shi family's business, he was also Sangwon's uncle. Who would dare to disrespect him? In the future, if he did well, he could make friends and expand his network. His future could be said to be bright. Wouldn't it be better than staying in this ravine? Miss Gu is really kind-hearted. Ryo Kuwabara couldn't help but praise Gu Fangzi. He couldn't wait to ask, "When will we be going?" Husan secretly despised them. He thought to himself, so this is young mistress's uncle and aunt? That means that young mistress isn't much. No wonder young master didn't want to marry her back then. Marrying a girl from such a family is simply shameful. Chapter 244. Of course, the sooner the better. Husan quickly smiled and said, "Why don't I stay at the inn in town for a night? Second master can arrange the matters at home, and find me at the inn tomorrow. Then we can go to Qingzhou together. Or it would be even better if we leave now." Miss Gu had instructed him that the sooner, the better. She also instructed him not to let the first branch of the Sang family know about this. Although Husan did not understand the reason, it would not be wrong to bring Rio Kuwabara back as soon as possible. Let's go now, let's go now. No problem, no problem. Rio Kuwabara was also afraid that a long delay would lead to trouble. He could not wait to rush to Gu Fengzi's side. If he was a step too late and this good job was snatched away by someone else, wouldn't his intestines turn green with regret? All right. Then second master, please pack up. We'll be on our way. Husan smiled. Aye, Rio Kuwabara agreed and was about to get up to pack when he suddenly realized something and asked with a smile. Little brother Husan, may I know how much is my monthly salary? Li Shi was already grinning from ear to ear at the side. Firstly, her husband had relied on her face to get this job, so she felt proud. Secondly, the family would have an additional source of income in the future. Speaking of which, it would be the Shi family's housekeeper in Qingzhou. Thirdly, when her husband went out, wouldn't she be able to do whatever she wanted with that vixen little hussy? She had to vent her anger properly. Hearing Rio Kuwabara ask about his salary, Li quickly pricked up her ears to listen. Husan spread his hands and smiled awkwardly. I'm not too sure about this. Second master, you are our young mistress's uncle, and Miss Gu personally sent someone to invite you. Your salary will definitely not be low. Moreover, this matter is not something that cannot be discussed. How could Miss Gu not give you face? Li quickly smiled and asked, then, how much did the previous warehouse manager get? This was a good question. Rio Kuwabara could not help but look at his family's old woman with approval. Husan thought for a moment, then smiled and said, it should be 2 or 3 taels. During the holidays there will be additional rewards, and 3 meals a day will be free. Second master should know more than this. So many. Rio Kuwabara and Li were so excited that they felt dizzy. They didn't have to pay for food and lodging, which was equivalent to a month's worth of profit. There were also gifts for the New Year and other festivals. Where else could he find such a good deal? Brother Husan, please wait for a moment. I'll pack up and come over right away. Rio Kuwabara said happily. Li sat with Husan in the hall, and the new concubine followed Rio Kuwabara back to the room to help pack up. Move faster. Just pick 2 sets of clothes and wrap them up. Sang Pingliang rubbed his hands and said happily. Just as he finished speaking, he added, Wait. You don't have to pack the best clothes. Just pack 2 sets of ordinary clothes. It was not as if the Shi family had no money. Miss Gu was so kind, so she was definitely not a stingy person. When the time came, if she saw that his clothes were not good, would she not make new ones for him? Why did he have to bring new ones? What a waste. Yes, master. The new concubine lowered her head and helped him pack his clothes. She took them over and folded them on the bed. What's wrong? You seem a little unhappy? Rio Kuwabara smiled and pulled the new concubine's hand. Master. The new concubine raised her head and looked at him with tender and pitiful eyes. Please bring this concubine along, master. How can there be no one by your side to serve you? Furthermore, old mistress hates this concubine so much. If master leaves this concubine at home, you might not see this concubine when you return. Without master's protection, old mistress will definitely not forgive this concubine. Master, this concubine doesn't want to leave master. As the new concubine said that, she turned around and covered her face as she cried. Rio Kuwabara felt that it made sense and quickly comforted her. Then he hesitated and said, It's just that if I bring you along, I don't know if Miss Gu will have any objections. The new concubine saw that he was moved by her words and quickly smiled. What's so difficult about that? Wouldn't it be fine if master rented a room outside? Furthermore, who are you? Will Miss Gu not give you this much face? Rio Kuwabara liked to hear this, but when he heard that he had to use money to rent a house, he could not help but feel his heart ache. He smacked his lips and said, I don't know if renting a house in Qingzhou City is expensive. The new concubine spat in her heart and quickly smiled. Shipping warehouses are usually built at the docks near the water. It's not like it's a bustling area in Qingzhou City, so how expensive can it be? Since Miss Gu is so kind, master, if you say a few good words, She might even arrange a ready-made house for Master. Master, if this concubine is not by Master's side, won't Master feel bored? Who will wash Master's clothes? If Master is tired, who will massage Master's back? When Rio Kuwabara saw her charming appearance, how could he care about anything else? He unconsciously nodded and smiled. What you said makes sense. It's still you who cares about Master. All right, then it's decided. You should also pack up and come with me to Qingzhou City. Yes, Master. When the new concubine saw that Rio Kuwabara agreed, she was overjoyed. After helping him pack up, she returned to her room and also quickly packed up. When they were about to leave, Lili saw the new concubine carrying 2 bags and following behind Rio Kuwabara. Li's suspicious gaze moved back and forth between the two of them. With a sullen face she said, "You lowly servant, why aren't you giving the bags to Master? Can you afford to delay Master's journey?" The new concubine did not make a sound. She only raised a pair of delicate and pitiful eyes and quickly glanced at Rio Kuwabara. Rio Kuwabara coughed and said calmly, "Yanji will come with me to Qingzhou City. You stay at home and take good care of her." What? Li's eyes widened and she almost jumped up. What? When Rio Kuwabara saw that she had lost her composure and questioned him in a shrill voice, his heart was immediately filled with disgust. He was even more determined to take Yanji with him. He frowned and reprimanded. "Did you not hear me clearly? If you didn't hear me clearly, I'll say it again. I want to take Yanji with me." "No," Li angrily shouted and denied it without thinking. "It's not your turn to speak." Rio Kuwabara was furious. "In any case, it's not possible." Li grabbed Yanji and used all her strength to poke her head. She hatefully said, "What kind of bewitching potion did this damn vixen give Master? You still want to go to Qingzhou City to enjoy life? No way. Rio Kuwabara, let me tell you, Miss Biao and I hit it off at first sight. Do you believe that I won't ask her to make the decision so that none of you can go? Preposterous. You dare." See if I dare or not." When Husan saw that the two of them were arguing until their faces were red and their veins were bulging, he could not help but secretly frown. He felt even more disdain for them. Seeing that the couple almost got into a fight, and the main culprit, Yanji, was standing at the side with her head lowered, looking as if she was scared out of her wits, Husan knew that this family was not good people. Cough cough, second master, second madam, please calm down. Let's discuss things properly. They had the energy to argue, but Husan only wanted to quickly return and report back. He was not in the mood to watch the show. He hurriedly went forward and pulled Rio Kuwabara. "Little brother Husan, this matter has made you laugh. Sit down and wait for a while. It will be done in a while." Rio Kuwabara held back his anger and smiled to appease Husan. He turned his head and glared at Li and said in a low voice, "Stupid woman, come with me." Rio Kuwabara had already treated Husan as a servant in his heart. How could a master argue in front of a servant and let him see? Wouldn't that be too embarrassing? If they wanted to argue, they should go into the room and argue. However, Li was not willing to do so. She treated Husan as Gu Fengzi's representative. She thought to herself, "You dare to treat me like this in front of Miss Biao's people? I will let him see clearly what kind of person you are and go back to Miss Biao to judge. Let's see if Miss Biao will still take care of you. Why should I go over? What was there that couldn't be said in the open? Let me tell you, I won't go today." Rio Kuwabara, you bastard who spoils your concubine and neglects your wife. You want to be outstanding? Bah. Li put her hands on her hips and said fiercely, "Are you looking for a beating?" Rio Kuwabara had never been treated like this before. "You still want to hit me? You want to hit me because of this vixen? Come on, hit me. Hit me." Li made a scene and moved forward. If it was a normal day, she would not dare to treat Rio Kuwabara like this. However, now that she had Miss Biao's support and Rio Kuwabara was about to ask Miss Biao to take care of him, she was suddenly full of confidence. What else did she have to worry about? "You dash. Second master, second madam." Husan thought that it would be terrible if they really fought. If he messed up such a simple task like receiving someone, he would not be able to show his face in front of Miss Biao in the future. Seeing that the situation was not good, he hurriedly went forward to hold Rio Kuwabara's raised arm and said with a smile, "Second master, second madam, we are an old married couple. What can't we talk about? Please calm down, calm down." When Lee saw that Hussein had stopped Rio Kuwabara, she felt even more proud. She was even more certain that Miss Biao was on her side. She could not help but cry and complain. "Little brother Hussein, you don't know how hard it is for me. Ever since this vixen married into our family, there has not been a day of peace in this family. This vixen has many tricks up her sleeves and has bewitched our master. No matter how I tried to persuade him, he would not listen. He even said that I was not virtuous and that I was a jealous woman. If I was really a jealous woman, would I let her marry into our family? Look at her. She did not lose an arm or a leg, nor did she lose a piece of flesh. I did not do anything to her, but our master still treats me like this. He brought this vixen to enjoy life and left me alone at home. Little brother Hussein, please be the judge. Have I done anything wrong?" Hussein's ears were about to explode from her loud voice. He resisted the urge to shout at her, and used the opportunity to push Rio Kuwabara away from Lee. He quickly said with a smile, "How about this, second master? How about you bring second madam along with you?" In any case, Miss Biao did not say that the two of them could not go together. He would bring them along first. This Li looked like a difficult person to deal with. Moreover, his words carried little weight. How could he persuade her? From her words, it seemed that she had a good relationship with Miss Biao. If he offended her and she said something to Miss Biao, it would be disadvantageous to him. Chapter 245. Lee was overjoyed when she heard that. Without waiting for Rio Kuwabara to speak, she quickly nodded. Good, good. That's a good idea. I haven't seen Miss Biao in a long time. I was just thinking of visiting her. Hearing her say that, even Rio Kuwabara, who had wanted to object, couldn't say anything. He only snorted unhappily. If you leave, there'll be no one else in this house. Are you not worried about leaving Aro and Ayen at home? Hearing her husband mention her precious daughter, Lee paused for a moment. However, when she saw Yenji standing meekly at the side with her head lowered, her hesitation immediately disappeared, letting her wait bitterly at home as a haggard old woman, while the two of them lived happily in the big city. Just thinking about it made her extremely uncomfortable. She definitely couldn't let that happen. Moreover, she had everything at home. Her daughter was already so old. What was there to worry about? Later, she would instruct her daughter to look for Sang Hong and his wife for help if anything happened. She didn't believe that the two of them would be so heartless as to not even want to see her daughter. They're not children anymore. Why can't they be at home by themselves? Humph, if you're worried, then leave Yenji behind to take care of them. How about that? Lee rolled her eyes at him. Yenji's heart was slightly moved. She didn't object to this. As long as Lee wasn't there, it was heaven to her. If she didn't even have to deal with the two of them, then it would be even better. No, Rio Kuwabara refused. Not bringing Yenji, but only Lee? Unless there was water in his head. Hadn't he seen enough of this old face? Did he want to bring her along to continue looking? With Yenji around, it would more or less alleviate his loneliness. Then hurry up and pack up. We'll set off now. Rio Kuwabara saw that she was insistent and couldn't be bothered to say more. Anyway, if she wanted to follow, then so be it. If she dared to make a fuss in front of others, he had plenty of ways and time to deal with her behind his back. Don't worry, I'll be done soon. Li was overjoyed when she heard that, and hurriedly went to tidy up. She then called Sang Yan and Sang Ro to give them some instructions. Naturally, he told Sang Yan to take good care of herself, not to feel wronged, close the door early at night, and not to go out if there was nothing important. Sang Ro did not have any nice words to say to her. She was scolded and threatened. The most important thing was that she was not allowed to be lazy and had to be quick and diligent. Otherwise, when she came back, she would teach her a lesson. Sang Ro lowered her head and lowered her eyes as she agreed timidly, but she was secretly overjoyed. Her parents weren't around, and Sang Yan was as honest as dough. Wasn't she the one who had the final say in this family? At least he wouldn't be so tired anymore. He could eat better and sleep more in the morning. She couldn't wait for them to leave. Damned girl, if I find out that Yin is missing a strand of hair or has lost weight, I'll break your legs. Li left these harsh words and came out with a bundle. She unceremoniously stuffed it into Yanji's hands. Take good care of it. Yanji did not dare to object and quickly took it. Ryo Kuwabara was slightly dissatisfied and frowned, but he did not want to cause trouble at this critical juncture. He pretended not to see and smiled at Husan. Little brother Husan, let's go. Ah, okay. Husan was eager to hear that. He hurriedly led them into the carriage and drove away. Gu Fangzi saw that not only did Husan bring Ryo Kuwabara over, he even brought Li and Ryo Kuwabara's concubines over. This was exactly what she wanted. Husan, who was still a little uneasy, was greatly praised and rewarded. Husan was overjoyed. Gu Fangzi smiled and personally received Ryo Kuwabara and the other two. Just as Yanji said, without waiting for Ryo Kuwabara to speak, she took the initiative to arrange 3 rooms in a courtyard next to the warehouse for them to live in. They would share a courtyard with 2 other families. Ryo Kuwabara and his wife thanked her profusely and fawned over Gu Fangzi. Originally, Li was happily planning to visit the Shi family from time to talk to Gu Fangzi. However, Lan Xiang privately told her that it would not be good for her image. If others saw her, they would think that Miss Gu was specially taking care of them, and would be jealous of them. It would not be worth it. She also said that young master and young mistress were not at home. Now that Miss Gu was busy inside and outside the household, how would she have time to see her? When she was free in the future, she would naturally send someone to invite her. Li heard that and gave up. After Gu Fangzi settled them down, she went to see Wang. She only told Wang that Sangwan's maternal uncle and aunt came looking for a job. She saw that there was a shortage of people guarding the warehouse, and planned to arrange for someone to go over. She asked Wang if it was appropriate. Wang's heart was filled with thoughts of her son who was injured and unclear. How could she care about anything else? She nodded and did not continue to argue. Gu Fangzi then went to make the arrangements. After that, things developed according to Gu Fangzi's plan. Ryo Kuwabara and his wife were greedy for money. Now that they had the convenience of guarding the warehouse, coupled with the occasional provocation, how could Ryo Kuwabara hold himself back? At first, he was still a little nervous when he tried to smuggle goods, but after tasting the benefits a few times, he became bolder and more unscrupulous. Gu Fangzi sneered in her heart, and ordered the people to turn a blind eye to it. Once someone complained, she suppressed the matter and vaguely hinted that Ryo Kuwabara was young mistress's relative. As for the rest, she let them do as they wished. Everyone was angry but did not dare to say anything. However, due to the relationship between Miss Gu and young mistress, and the fact that this was the Shi family's business, the benefits would not fall on them even if they did not steal it. Why should they be nosy? Gradually, no one mentioned this matter again, and the shopkeepers above knew nothing about it. It was only until today when it was the shopkeepers' turn to do a routine check that they found many problems. When the shopkeepers asked, the people below naturally did not help Ryo Kuwabara. At this time, Gu Fangzi did not care about the shipping anymore, so the people took the opportunity to complain even more. The shopkeeper was shocked and angry. Due to Ryo Kuwabara's identity, he could not detain him. He only found an excuse to let him rest for a few days, and planned to report this matter to young Master Shi first before making a decision. After all, Ryo Kuwabara's surname was Sang. But when Ryo Kuwabara heard that he was temporarily allowed to rest for 2 days, his face turned red. When he secretly inquired about the reason, how could he remain calm? Thus, he took the opportunity to rush to the Shi family. He must be faster than the shopkeepers and solve this matter before them. Otherwise, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Could the Shi family still use him? He could not bear to lose this job. He lived well and ate well. When people heard that he was young mistress's uncle, they said that he would have a bright future. He was just temporarily training and familiarizing himself with this place. This was also the Shi family's rule. Who would dare to neglect him? There were many who wanted to curry favor with him. He, Ryo Kuwabara, had never received such treatment in his life. This was the best and most glorious period of his life. Wouldn't it be a pity to end it like this? When Gu Fengzi heard Lan Xiang report that Rio Kuwabaira had an urgent matter to see her, she knew that the paper could not hide the fire. The matter was finally going to be exposed. She had been waiting for this day. Why would she try to help Rio Kuwabaira suppress this matter? It was more important to make a big scene. Go and calm him down. Tell him that I'm no longer in charge of this matter. Tell him to look for young mistress. Gu Fengzi said slowly. Of course, you have to make it clear to him. Young mistress is someone who can't tolerate sand in her eyes. If she hears about this matter, she will probably be angry. Tell him to think of a comprehensive way to explain it slowly. After all, as an elder, being taught a lesson by a junior, that would be a huge loss of face. If he refuses to look for young mistress, tell him that he might be able to plead with young mistress. I'll go to my aunt's place first. Do you know what to do? This servant understands. Young mistress, please rest assured. If she did not understand, she would have been a servant for so many years in vain. It was not easy for her young mistress to set up Rio Kuwabaira and his wife. How could she really let him go to young mistress for help? Naturally, she would lead him to young mistress. Lan Xiang bowed and left. Gu Fengzi's lips curled into a cold smile. She sighed and muttered, Sangwan ah Sangwan, I want to see how you explain this matter to young mistress. Rio Kuwabaira was already anxious like an ant in a hot pot. When he saw someone calling him in, his flustered heart immediately calmed down and he hurriedly followed. Seeing that it was Lan Xiang who was waiting at the second door, although Rio Kuwabaira was a little disappointed, he still cheered up and went forward with a smile. Miss Lan Xiang, where is young Mistress Biao? I really have an urgent matter to discuss with young Mistress Biao. Lan Xiang smiled and said, If there's anything, just tell me. I will pass it on to young Mistress Biao. Our young Mistress Biao is currently serving young Mistress Biao. How can she leave? Why don't you come back tomorrow? How could Rio Kuwabaira wait until tomorrow? His face and ears turned red and he was embarrassed for a while. Gritting his teeth, he finally explained the matter. Of course, the process was brief. He only said that he was muddle-headed and deserved to die. He shouldn't have listened to other people's instigation and made such a big mistake. He begged young Mistress Biao to help him. Otherwise, only death awaited him. Lan Xiang seemed to be frightened by his words. After a while, she came back to her senses and anxiously said, How can you be so muddle-headed and do such a thing? Our family's young mistress was kind enough to help you. Instead of giving her face, you created such a scene. This time, I'm afraid even our young mistress will have to ask for forgiveness. How can she help you? Miss Lan Xiang, you must help me put in a good word in front of young Mistress Biao. I really know my mistake. I won't do it again. I swear that in the future, I will do things honestly and will not embarrass young Mistress Biao. Rio Kuwabaira was reprimanded by Lan Xiang, and he couldn't help but feel anxious and ashamed. Lan Xiang unwillingly muttered for a while and sighed. Second old Master Biao. Young Mistress Biao doesn't care about outside matters now. Even if she wants to help you, she can't. Why don't I help you to see if young Mistress Biao is free, and you can ask young Mistress Biao for help? No. You must not tell her. Before Lan Xiang could think of a way to change the topic from young Mistress Biao to young Mistress Biao, Rio Kuwabaira was so anxious that he almost jumped up. He waved his hands and hurriedly objected. You can't tell her. You must not tell her about this matter. Chapter 246. On the surface, Sang Wan, that wretched lass, treated the both of them nicely. In fact, she was no different from the heartless Sang Hong, Sang Yufei and Fong Fong. If she were to find out about this matter, she would be the first to not let him off. She would not help him deal with this matter. Lan Xiang was overjoyed when she heard this, but her expression did not change. Instead, she asked curiously, Why? Young mistress is your biological niece. If she is willing to speak, one sentence from her would be more than a few sentences from my family's young mistress. The more Rio Kuwabaira did not dare to tell Sang Wan, the more Lan Xiang wanted to ask Sang Wan to make the decision. Rio Kuwabaira was so anxious that his eyes were in a mess. He begged, Miss Lan Xiang, you really can't tell her. You don't know that niece of mine. If she knew, She would not understand my difficulties and would not forgive me for being foolish. Instead, she would not let me go and torture me to death. Young mistress, you must not tell her. Lan Xiang saw his panicked and fearful appearance and found it funny. She could not help but sympathize with him. She sighed and said, "You are right. Young mistress is very strict in managing the household. She cannot tolerate sand in her eyes. If she knew, she would definitely hand you over to the business to be dealt with. She would not say a word." "Isn't that so?" Rio Kuwabara was so anxious that he rubbed his hands. Lan Xiang sighed again and said, "Who doesn't make mistakes? I see that you are truly remorseful. Do you want me to show you a way out? If it works, it is your good fortune. If it doesn't, you can't blame me. Regardless of whether it works or not, you cannot tell anyone that this idea was given to you by me." Rio Kuwabara was hesitating. Now that he had grasped onto a life-saving straw, how could he reject it? He hurriedly nodded in agreement and asked Lan Xiang for guidance. Lan Xiang smiled and said, "I am just a servant. What I am most afraid of is getting into trouble. I will only believe you if you make an oath." Not to mention swearing. Even if he asked Rio Kuwabara to kneel down and kowtow, as long as he could pass, he would be willing to do so. Immediately, he turned his hand to the sky and swore according to Lan Xiang's words. He impatiently said, "Miss Lan Xiang, what ideas do you have? Quickly tell me." Lan Xiang smiled and said, "Our first madam always abstains from meat and recites Buddhist scriptures. She is the most benevolent and compassionate. Why don't I bring you to beg her? It just so happens that my family's young miss is also in front of First Madam. I'll give her a look, and she'll definitely put in a few good words for you." Rio Kuwabara's eyes lit up. That's right, there's still First Madam. Logically speaking, he and First Madam were of the same generation, and they were also in-laws. Since First Madam was an old lady who abstained from meat and prayed to Buddha and Bodhisattva, she would definitely be easy to talk to. As long as First Madam didn't make a fuss about it, Shi Fengjiu and Wan Yang were juniors. Wouldn't they have to listen to her? Rio Kuwabara even had a rogue thought. She was just a woman in the inner courtyard. If a man like him asked, she would be embarrassed to say no, right? Good. Good. That's the best. Miss Lan Xiang, I'll have to trouble you to bring me to see First Madam. Rio Kuwabara couldn't wait. Lan Xiang secretly sneered in her heart, but on the surface she said, "All right then, let's go. Once you see First Madam, you have to seize the opportunity to lower your attitude and quickly beg for mercy. First Madam is soft-hearted. As long as she agrees, she definitely won't go back on her words. Also, if First Madam knows that it was my family's young miss who asked you to do this job on the ship, I'm afraid that my family's young miss won't be able to help you." Rio Kuwabara was startled and immediately understood. He hurriedly said, "Miss Biao originally had good intentions. How could I harm her? I asked Miss Biao to take care of this job myself." Lan Xiang smiled with satisfaction, but then asked, "Logically speaking, First Madam is closer to you. Then why didn't you ask First Madam to take care of you?" Rio Kuwabara said, "At that time, Wan Yang wasn't in the residence, and Miss Biao happened to be in charge of the ship's operations." How tactful. Yes, that's exactly the case. Lan Xiang hurriedly said with a smile, "My family's young miss has always respected First Madam. Since you are First Madam's uncle, there's no reason for Miss Biao not to help you. Miss Biao has good intentions. I am ashamed to have let Miss Biao down." Rio Kuwabara hurriedly smiled. Why did those words sound so awkward and unpleasant to the ears? Lan Xiang frowned slightly and snorted softly, "Let's go. We'll go see First Madam now." After saying that, she led the way and ignored Rio Kuwabara. Gu Fengzi was chatting with Wang when she suddenly heard that the Sang family's second master had requested an audience. Startled, Wang asked, "The Sang family's second master?" Gu Fengzi coughed and replied with a smile, "Aunt, have you forgotten? I told you before that I had arranged a job for the Sang family's second master. He should be in Qingzhou right now. But it's strange. Why would he want to see you?" "Oh, my memory." Wang smiled in realization. After thinking for a while, she said, "Let him in. He must have something to say." In the end, it was her daughter-in-law's family. How could Wang think of anything else? She even asked Gu Fangzi, Nanny Jiang, and the others to help her see if her clothes were appropriate. Who knew that Ryo Kuwabara would kneel in front of her the moment he entered? He lowered his head and cried, "First Madam, I know I was wrong. I beg First Madam to be merciful and forgive me this time. I won't dare to do it again. I beg First Madam." Everyone in the room, including Wang, except for Gu Fangzi and her servant, were dumbfounded. In an instant, there was complete silence. Only Ryo Kuwabara was crying and begging for mercy. Gu Fangzi pretended to be surprised and raised her handkerchief to cover her face. In reality, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hold back her laughter. Exchanging a glance with Lan Xiang, Gu Fangzi was overjoyed. She didn't know what that sly girl had told Ryo Kuwabara to cause such a scene. Her aunt had never seen such a scene before. It would be strange if she wasn't frightened. "First Madam, I beg you to say something. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I beg you to forgive me and leave me some face. I won't dare to do it again. I promise, I won't dare to do it again. You are a merciful person like Bodhisattva. Why lower yourself to the level of someone like me?" Ryo Kuwabara saw that Wang had no reaction, and was even more frightened. Other than begging for mercy, he continued to flatter Wang, praising her as if she was the best in the world and despising himself. Heavenly Bodhisattva. What exactly is going on? Wang regained her composure and exclaimed. She was really frightened. Second Old Master Sang was her daughter-in-law's uncle. Her daughter-in-law's parents had both passed away, so he was her proper elder. He was on the same level as her. But the moment this person came in, he knelt and begged for mercy in front of her. He was clearly a servant. Now she was completely dumbfounded. Gu Fangzi saw that the commotion was about to end. She coughed heavily and raised her voice. Second Old Master Sang, "Please wait a moment. Tell me what exactly is going on. If you don't tell me clearly, how can my aunt help you?" That's right. What exactly is going on?" Wang felt uneasy and looked at Ryo Kuwabara with a frown. This person's vulgar actions carried a servile aura and a wretched appearance. His appearance was also not pleasing to the eye. Wang had a very bad impression of him. Ryo Kuwabara raised his eyes and glanced at Gu Fangzi. "Miss Biao really didn't ignore me. She's already helping me. I'll tell you now." Ryo Kuwabara raised his sleeve to wipe his tears and said, Wait. Gu Fangzi's eyes swept across the crowd and said, "Aunt, it's better to let the servants go out and hide. If the servants went out and said a few words, then it would be lively. Let's see if that Sangwon still has any face left." Gu Fangzi secretly sneered. Wang nodded. With a wave of her hand, other than Nanny Jiang, the rest retreated. She then turned to Ryo Kuwabara and said, "You should get up too." The words second old master-in-law made Wang feel awkward just thinking about it. She could not bring herself to say it out loud. "I'll just say it this way. I've let down the Sher family and old mistress. I'm too ashamed to get up." When Ryo Kuwabara heard that old mistress wanted him to get up, his heart shook. There's hope. Old mistress's heart is indeed not bad. He wanted to kneel. Originally, it had nothing to do with Wang. But when she thought of his identity, Wang felt that it was particularly glaring to see him kneeling in front of her. Her brows furrowed slightly. Gu Fangzi quickly smiled and said, "Second old master-in-law, you should get up. You're our young mistress's uncle. No matter how big the matter is, there's no reason for you to kneel." As she said that, she gestured for Lan Xiang to help him up. "Fenger is right. Quickly get up and sit down." Wang said lightly, "I thank you, old mistress. Thank you, Miss Biao." Ryo Kuwabara did not wait for Lan Xiang to help him up. Besides, Lan Xiang did not really want to help him up. She only went to his side and raised her hand to help him up. Ryo Kuwabara got up and bowed to Wang and Gu Fangzi. Only then did he sit down under Lan Xiang's guidance. Ryo Kuwabara thought that he was being courteous, but he did not know that he had lowered his status to the extreme. But he should not have such a lowly status. The more courteous he was, the more Wang despised him. She was just disgusted earlier, but now she was disgusted. Aunt's heart is the best. You don't have to hide anything. Just say it. Gu Fengzi kindly reminded him again. Ai. Rio Kuwabara hurriedly nodded and smiled. After all, he was the one who did it. Rio Kuwabara still felt quite embarrassed. There were a few times when he wanted to say something, but he could not say it. Instead, his face flushed red. In the end, he made up his mind. If he did not say it, he would have made a wasted trip today. It would only be worse when he returned. Old mistress, this matter is really not easy to talk about. After all, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have been blinded by money. I shouldn't have been blinded by lard. Rio Kuwabara stuttered and finally said everything that he had done. Then he unconsciously stood up again. Old mistress, I was wrong. I really know that I was wrong. I beg old mistress to forgive me this time. If this matter is made public, I will lose face in front of everyone. How can I continue to work in the future? Moreover, Wan Yang will also lose face. I promise it won't happen again. Chapter 247. How could there be such a thing? What you said is all true. Wang was shocked and angry. Rio Kuwabara lowered his head and was speechless. This. Wang did not know what to say and her heart went blank. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that Rio Kuwabara was such a person. Since he was here to work, instead of helping his relatives, he tried to poach them and even had the nerve to plead with her. If this matter were to be made known, not only would Sangwon lose face, but would the Shi family have any? Old mistress, Enough! Wang raised her hand to stop him and said, I don't know much about business matters, so there's no point in telling me. Nanny Jiang, send someone to invite Fengju back. And Sangwon, tell her to come over too. Wang's face darkened. Old mistress, then you agree not to pursue this matter with me? Rio Kuwabara quickly asked. This was what he was concerned about. If Wang did not agree, he would be dead meat if he fell into the hands of Shi Fengju and Sangwon. This was the first time Wang had met someone who was more unreasonable than her. Even Gu Jin in the past, although he was a scoundrel, his mind was clear, unlike Rio Kuwabara. Why couldn't this person understand what she was saying? Wang could not help but be annoyed. When she spoke again, her tone was a little stiff. Let's wait for Fengju and Wan Yang to come before we talk about this. Old mistress, you. Second old master. Gu Fengzi quickly said with a smile. Don't worry, you're an elder. When big cousin and big sister come, we can discuss this matter again. There will definitely be a solution. Gu Fengzi got up and went to Wang's side. Pulling Wang's arm, she lowered her eyes and whispered guiltily. Aunt, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have. It's none of your business. You have good intentions. Wang was even more annoyed in her heart, but she was still amiable to Gu Fengzi. But what if elder sister? Wang's face darkened. Her? Could it be that she still has the face to blame you? Auntie, I'm not senile yet. Nanny Jiang saw that Wang was angry and began to ignore everything. It wasn't good to say these words in front of Rio Kuwabara, so she smiled and said, First, madam, in this servant's opinion, why don't we ask second master to go and rest first? He must be tired after talking for so long. Mama Jiang had good intentions. She didn't want Rio Kuwabara to be embarrassed here. Unexpectedly, Rio Kuwabara panicked when he heard that. He quickly waved his hand and said, I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all. I'm fine. First, madam, I'll wait here. Wang understood Mama Jiang's meaning and ignored Rio Kuwabara's words. She nodded and said, Then bring him down to have a seat. Have someone prepare tea and serve him well. Don't say that our Shi family has no manners and neglects our relatives. First, madam, I really. Second, Master Rio. First, madam is here, so don't worry. Quickly go and rest with Mama Jiang. Gu Fengzi hurriedly said. That's fine too. Seeing Gu Fengzi raise her eyebrows and give him a look, Rio Kuwabara felt relieved and followed Mama Jiang. What is this? I'm so angry. How could there be such an elder in Wan Yang's family? Once Rio Kuwabara left, Wang became angrier the more she thought about it. She slammed her hand heavily on the coffee table. Aunt, please calm down, Gu Fengzi hurriedly said with a smile. Actually, which family doesn't have a few unreliable relatives? That's nothing. It's just that big sister should have reported it to you long ago, so that you and I would have known. Back then, when he came to me, I wouldn't have agreed so easily. Wang sighed and said, You're right. No wonder the Sang family only sent her elder brother and sister-in-law. Previously, I was puzzled. Didn't her uncle and aunt come? Why didn't they show their faces? So that's how it is. Gu Fengzi hurriedly said, Logically speaking, I shouldn't be the one to say this. However, you've already seen the second master of the in-laws. He's not someone who can be seen in public. Big sister cares a lot about her reputation. So it's normal that she didn't bring them here. It was fine if she didn't want to listen, but after hearing it, Wang felt even more disgusted. She frowned and said, Wan Yang has always been gentle and virtuous. I only thought of her as a virtuous and honest person. I didn't expect her to be so scheming. She's so vain. Did she think that this kind of thing could be hidden for a long time? If she was really honest, she would have reported it to me long ago. Today's matter wouldn't have happened. Now this is great. She was guarding the warehouse, but she stole from her own people. If she was an unrelated person, the shopkeepers would have sent her to the authorities long ago. She still has the nerve to come here and beg for mercy. How shameless. Recalling his servile appearance just now, Wang felt even more disgusted. Aunt, don't say that. In the end, she's still sister's relative. Gu Fengzi hurriedly persuaded from the side. She paused for a moment before whispering, Sister served aunt with all her heart and took care of big cousin. Even if she didn't have any merit, she still worked hard. Aunt, you should at least leave some face for sister. Wang let out a long sigh. The anger in her heart subsided without any reason. She held Gu Fengzi's hand and sighed. Fenger, you're always so considerate. Wan Yang treated you so badly, but you still treat her with sincerity. That's really rare. AI, if Sangwon had your breadth of mind, the matter between you and Fengju wouldn't be in a deadlock until now. Wang Shi regretted her slip of the tongue and brought it up at this moment. She coughed and remained silent. Gu Fengzi forced a smile. Aunt, it's all right. I can wait. Really. One day, big cousin and sister will see my sincerity. It's been hard on you. Wang sighed softly. She looked at Gu Fengzi with even more pity in her eyes. Regarding this matter, Wang was caught in a dilemma. On one side was her son, and on the other was her niece who grew up by her side. Both of them insisted on not giving in, and the one who was in the most difficult position was her. Aunt, big cousin and sister might come in a while. I think it's better for me to avoid them. I'm afraid that sister will misunderstand. Gu Fengzi suddenly said. Wang disagreed and felt that it might not be the case. However, Gu Fengzi's current status was very awkward. If Sangwon was really suspicious of her, it would be unavoidable for her to cause more trouble. Avoiding them had its benefits, so she nodded. Aunt, you must talk to sister nicely about this matter later. Don't be anxious and don't be angry. To say something that I shouldn't say. It's not worth it to make mother and daughter-in-law unhappy over such a person. Gu Fengzi smiled and walked towards the warm room. Suddenly, she turned back and smiled. All right, I got it. Wang Shi looked at her with a smile. Furthermore, Shi Fengju did not go to the store's inventory for the past 2 days. The Shi family's rule was that each store's inventory would be done by their own shopkeeper every month. Every 2 months, the inventory would be done by the higher-ups. Every quarter, all the business inventory would be gathered in front of him. As for the monthly and bi-monthly inventory, other than the especially important ones, he would look through them in detail. The rest were just random checks. Today's weather was good. After breakfast, Shi Fengju accompanied Sangwon for a walk in the garden. When the two of them came to the lakeside, they saw the half-blooming lotus flowers and green lotus leaves. They could not help but be interested and ordered the boat made to row the boat over. They boarded the boat and admired the flowers on the lake. When the two of them were in high spirits, Chang Huan suddenly came to look for them. She said that there was an urgent matter in the store and asked Shi Fengju to go over immediately. Shi Fengju naturally did not decline, and the two of them returned to Ning Garden. Sangwon helped him change his clothes and sent him out. She then sat in the room. Not long after Shi Fengju left, Wang sent someone to invite her over. Sangwon did not expect that Shi Fengju leaving the Fu and her going to see her mother-in-law were actually for the same matter. She tidied up a little and hurried over. When she entered the main hall, Sangwon found that the atmosphere was a little strange. Beside Wang, there was only Jiang Mama serving her. Xiao Chun and the other maidservants had all retreated outside. Looking at Wang's expression, although it was calm, Sangwon could keenly feel a kind of calmness. As for Jiang Mama, her eyes were lowered and her hands were loosely folded in front of her. She did not look at her. Sangwon went forward and bowed. She smiled and said, "I don't know why mother has called your daughter-in-law over." Wang took a deep breath and said with a faint smile, "Can't I call you over for a chat if there's nothing important? Sit down." Daughter-in-law didn't mean that. It's daughter-in-law's good fortune to be able to accompany mother to relieve your boredom. Sangwon smiled and sat down. Wang was not good at beating around the bush. She thought for a moment and said, "Do you have an uncle and aunt in your maternal family?" When Sangwon heard her mention this, her heart tightened. She secretly paid attention and nodded with a smile. "Yes." "Then they're your elders." Wang smiled and said, "If I'm not wrong, they've never come to our home before, right? When did you invite them over? I want to meet them." "Why did mother suddenly think of this?" Sangwon asked with a smile. Wang sure saw that she didn't answer her question directly, and instead asked her a question. Firstly, it was disrespectful, and secondly, it was a sign of guilt. Her expression immediately changed and she said unhappily, "I asked you a question and you asked me a question back. I suddenly thought of this today. We're all relatives, but we've never met. How can this be? Those who don't know will think that our Shi family is looking down on others." Sangwon naturally did not believe that Wang suddenly thought of this matter. Although she did not know what happened, she guessed that this matter was most likely related to Gu Fangzi. Sangwon's face suddenly stiffened, and she lowered her eyes without saying a word. Wang saw that her vanity was still causing trouble, and that she was unwilling to tell her the truth at this time. She could not help but feel annoyed and was about to flare up when Sangwon raised her head and said, "Since mother said so, I'll send someone to bring second uncle and second aunt to the residence later. However, if second uncle and second aunt are rude in any way, mother, please don't take it to heart." Sangwon sighed secretly. Since Wang had said so, she guessed that this matter could not be hidden for long. She might as well say it out loud. Wang heard her say so and her heart was slightly satisfied. She smiled and said, "What a joke. You're just a junior. How can you say that about your own uncle and aunt? Wan Yang, this is not something you should say. They're guests. We're lucky that we're not rude and become a joke. How can it be that they're the ones being rude?" You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.